6:01. Good morning. I'm Jonathan Schaefer from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won the Daytona 500. He won the race in double overtime and under caution. The two overtimes pushed the race to a record 212 laps, a dozen laps beyond the scheduled distance, and a total 530 miles. To the NHL, the Wild defeated the Predators 4-3 Sunday in Minnesota. The Preds split their games over the weekend, having defeated Florida 7-3 on Saturday. To the NBA and the All-Star game, Team Giannis over Team LeBron, 184-175. Jason Tatum scored an All-Star game record 55 points and won the game MVP. Women's hoops yesterday, Lady Vols defeated Auburn 83-76. Vanderbilt over Kentucky 79-57. MTSU defeated FIU 85-46. And Belmont with the win over Missouri State 68-58. College baseball started over the weekend. Vanderbilt routed Texas 12-2 yesterday to take 2 of 3 over the weekend at the College Baseball Showdown in Arlington, Texas. The Vols took down UC San Diego 7-0 yesterday, getting their first win of the season after dropping their first 2 games. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
A new week begins on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, and there is lots to discuss with the head coach of the Tennessee Football Volunteers. Josh Heupel on the show this morning. Lots of your reaction to a weekend without football that, yes, was about as depressing as we knew it would be. Alongside 11-year NFL veteran and Vol for life, Ramon Foster.
Yay.
Kayla Anderson with a very well-deserved Monday off, wherever she may be. Hopefully she will have a drink in her hand soon. And Jonathan Schaefer making the show happen.
The best producer in the world.
In the world, and don't you ever forget it. My name's Will Bowling.
Yes, it is. You are Will Bowling.
Today is Monday, February the 20th, and the first Sunday without football just always hits a little bit different.
Well, there was a weekend full of football, though, Will. XFL.
Like I said, the first weekend without football hits very different.
No, I don't see any scenario of that.
Hey, man, I actually watched a snippet or two of it. It wasn't bad. Other than the biggest separator on the biggest level, I guess that is the O-line play. Like, I watched A.J. McCarron, the Alabama quarterback, rally back for a win this past, yesterday. It was actually very entertaining. Of course, it was a tight game, but they got, live betting on it, Will.
They do.
They have the over and under. I'm just like, wow, but A.J. McCarron played a really good football game yesterday.
It did feel right when it was so cold outside having football on because like we talked about last week, when football ends, I want spring to begin.
That's fair.
I can't be okay with cold weather as long as football is not on. The two have to be paired together. But watching Ben DiNucci play quarterback for some random XFL team that's branded like a custom team number 3 team on Madden that you try to create just doesn't really do anything for me.
Yeah, I feel you. It's the names that kind of get you more than anything. They got more stars at coaches than they do on the field.
Yes, they do.
They've made it regional with some of the players that they've selected. I feel like still watching A.J. McCarron, I was like, oh, know that guy. You know what I'm saying? So that's what really kept me in on watching it because I heard his name 1 or 2 times. I was like, oh, well, let me see what he looked like, not carried by a well-stacked college football team like Alabama or Crimson Tide.
Little jab at 6:05 in the morning. It's just fine.
You knew where I was going, though, right?
If you want to play in the XFL, just go play quarterback at Alabama. You'll be fine. 615-737-1045. Good morning, Jonathan Schaefer. Yeah, quite an eventful way for Jonathan Schaefer to get in this morning.
No, the car's dead.
That's not great.
Yeah, I tried to turn it over. No, didn't happen.
Yeah.
Not great. Don't know why. Everything was fine as of yesterday. Don't know.
Just needed a break, too, like it knew it was President's Day or something?
Yeah, I think my car was of this attitude this morning.
Come on, man.
Didn't want to do it. I mean, you know what? And I even took care of it yesterday. Took it
What you
to
mean?
the car wash. Soap, rinse, clean. Nice. I checked last night to make sure there were no overhead lights on in the car. Everything was fine as of 7 o'clock last night. Wake up this morning. Nope.
So you asked your car to start, and then your car responded in turn and said,
What did it say?
what? You're the worst. You know what I'm telling you.
No, I actually don't.
Kyle Shanahan.
Oh, I thought that's what you
No,
meant.
I don't see any scenario of
I
that.
wasn't sure.
Yeah,
I thought you
appreciate
whispered in his
That's on
ear
me.
to tell
That's
him,
on me.
well,
You can deny
I
me
mean,
for
I'm
that.
slightly distracted, to be fair.
it's a morning. It's a Monday morning, man.
I did. So I was I was dragging a little bit coming in this morning. Just
Dragging
a little
that
tired.
wagon this morning.
It was just a
Will.
Monday.
Okay.
I was walking in like from my car, and I was looking around like I don't see Schaefer's car. I was like, oh. Am I going to have to produce the show while we host the show?
No,
this
but I would have
morning?
let you know way earlier.
That's
than that.
and I knew that.
Yeah.
But extreme circumstances happen once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
Extreme circumstances had happened before that were not Jonathan Schaefer's fault. So this would have been the second time, but thankfully we
Your boy
avoided.
made sure he got in.
Yeah.
We avoided this.
His plan B was having Ramon stop by the house if we needed to.
I was planning on it, but this also tells us Will is in another level of first career, second career maybe for you, Will, because you've done so many things. Coming into the workspace, and this is not even a jab at you. I had to learn this too, Will.
Yeah.
There are certain spots in which certain cars belong.
Yeah, that's right.
And Shafe has one of those parking lot spots to be like, he's either here or he's right there, Will.
Right.
It took me a while to be like, hey, is it okay to park in another parking spot?
Well, you can park wherever you want.
I know. But when you create a rhythm of just being in the same parking spot almost every single day.
That's right.
Like somebody actually did park in the spot that I like to park up against
They
the
did.
fence.
That's right.
I didn't really make a big fuss about it, Will, but I wanted to. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, that's really my spot, but it's not. So, yeah, you've graduated now, Will, to parking spot. What do we want to call it? Parking lot? Official parking lot statuses, I guess is what we'll call it.
Yeah, I got
you cool with
my
that?
parking lot merit badge.
Because I know, are you one or two spots every single time?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same spot every day.
And I've kind of figured out if it's a rainy weather day, I know where you're parking at too now.
Yeah, and then the other side. You're right.
Yeah.
Closer to the door.
See?
Thing is, I'm a lot less intimidating to people to fight for said spot. Like I know you're not really you're not super intimidating, but you're a wild card to somebody that doesn't know you.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I was just gonna be like, it was gonna be real passive aggressive. It's like, hey,
that's right.
new parking spot today, huh? Just to see if they recognize, because my truck is gonna be there for the most part.
That's right.
Unless it's my truck will be there, and I was just like, well, that's kind of my spot. You don't have to move, but realize that's where I park.
I imagine taking parking spots from veterans on the Pittsburgh Steelers is always a good time.
Oh my gosh, no. Let's
Learned that the hard way?
Yeah, that and watching other young guys park in Ben's spot. I'm like, yo,
Oh, that's not great.
don't be in that spot. He actually had a tag there. It's like parking spot. Why would you park there? And then it'd be, of course, an older veteran that'll tell him, hey, go park in Ben's spot today, not realizing that he has all the numbers to the tow companies around the city.
So speaking of that, I guess the long-term goal for the Tennessee Titans this offseason and next is to find a quarterback good enough to reserve their own parking spot at the facility.
I wondered how he was going to do that.
Find a quarterback good enough to deserve his own parking spot at the facility.
Man. That's well done.
Thank you. 615-737-1045 on Monday's edition of Ramon, Kayla, and
I mean,
Will.
I'm genuinely impressed, and I never give him credit for anything. That was good.
Because I'm not wrong.
I didn't know you was going that route.
Ryan
Will.
Tannehill not quite on the level of having his own parking spot at the Titans facility.
He started transitioning, and I'm going, boy, I want to see. I want to see where he goes with this.
Yeah.
And he stuck the landing.
I'm telling you, when the Swedish judge just gave me a 9. When I was coming into the building, and I thought I was going to have to produce this thing and host it, I woke up a little bit. We woke up on go.
Ask Ramon. Some of us have done that.
We have.
Some of us have done that.
But Will, I was just like, man, that was a quick transition. I had like another story and everything. No, Will was like, you do it again.
We brought down the rebound, and I was throwing a quick outlet pass to you. We were not going to dribble around and run the clock. We're not taking a knee. We decided to go ahead and dunk the basketball up too late and
remarkable.
transition.
Yeah, we did. Will said, get us a quarterback here that's good enough to have his own parking spot, and everybody knows not to park in it.
I mean, that's a good way to gauge how good of a quarterback you need here.
Because not just Joe Blow can just have that type of power right there.
Joe Burrow, his own parking spot. Trevor Lawrence has his own parking spot.
Cam Newton had his own parking spot.
That's right.
Okay, Steve McNair had his own parking spot.
I wouldn't even say Marcus Mariota.
For a little while.
For a year or two there, had his own parking spot.
Can you have the power to revoke it too? Like, that's what we need, because
I would say so.
early on had his own parking spot.
I'd say so.
Yeah. that is phenomenal.
615-737-1045, our number. The lineup this morning. Ben McKee of Go Vols 247 joining us at 720. Another bad day for Tennessee.
We'll ask Ben about his quarterback parking spots area too.
That's right.
Tennessee, dog, just bad weekend for them.
First time Rick Barnes has been swept by Kentucky while he's been the head coach of the Tennessee basketball Volunteers.
Kentucky's just a bad matchup for this team.
I agree.
That may be.
With that much size and athleticism that Kentucky has, and are slowly getting healthier.
Yeah.
That's just a bad matchup for Tennessee.
There are times late in the college basketball season when you get two teams who have very different levels of desperation. Kentucky's at about a 10 on the desperation scale. Tennessee's at like a 4 without Josiah Jordan-James and Julian Phillips.
Yep.
I mentioned it the other day, and it's not an excuse because they beat Alabama without those two guys.
So true.
But I think it caught up to them a little bit in this game, specifically when you talk about Kentucky's one of the only teams in college basketball who can out-rebound Tennessee.
Yeah. And they did, and they played tougher than we did for the most part. And, I mean, the contrast to the Bama game was what? They just bullied them. Kentucky wasn't going to allow that because they're big everywhere, man.
And we'll get into it on that game, but my take on this team right now is we don't really have a lot of new information. They just kind of are who they are right now.
So true.
Like we could have the same exact conversation we've had about them the last 3 weeks, and it's like we're not really going to say anything new. Like they're a really good team. That's the best defensive team in college basketball, but that is rendered useless when you shoot 29% in first halves and go down by 20 to anybody away from your home gym.
I was telling somebody recently, it's like we've worked too hard as a fan base to go back to dropping games like that.
Yeah, that's right. And the guy that has helped us not drop games like that in the Volunteer State, Josh Heupel, on the show this morning, 8:15. Looking forward to catching up with him on what this offseason and specifically these couple weeks of the offseason looks like for a head coach in the SEC, especially one that had a successful year. Got to imagine the vibe of that building, very different in this offseason than it was going into last 2022 season. So we'll get into that with him. And we'll hit all the headlines with Teresa Walker at 9:20, talk a number of topics with her in the NFL as well as college basketball where, don't look now, but the Vanderbilt Commodores are still a little hot and maybe backing themselves into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, for real.
So we'll get into that with her as well. But coming up next, it became official over the weekend. Eric Bieniemy to the Washington Commanders. How do Titans fans process this information? Because as far as we know, that guy never met with the Titans, yet took a similar position as to what the Titans had available in the NFC. We'll dive into that coming up next on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
If you have a wet basement or crawl space, it's time to call United Structural Systems. We've heard about these guys for a long time and for good reasons. They've served Middle Tennessee since 1994, and they've helped thousands of satisfied residential customers. They are the go-to company when it comes to foundation repair and waterproofing. And if you have a wet basement or crawl space, you don't have to put up with that. Water intrusion and moisture can give you all sorts of problems down the road, and you want to get this fixed. It can be because you have poor drainage or surface water flooding over the walls, or underwater pressure forcing water into your basement. It could be a plumbing leak. You just don't know. But the team at United Structural Systems will find out why you have a wet basement or crawl space, and we'll give you a plan to fix it. And if you do decide to move forward, you don't have to pay a dime until the work is done and you are satisfied. So get that free estimate from the people I trust. Go to USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com, or call 615-227-2275. United Structural Systems.
It's Ramon, Kayla, and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors on a 104.5 The Zone. Alongside Ramon Foster, I'm Will Bowling. Kayla Anderson, another day off. 615-737-1045 is the number. So it becomes official over the weekend, Ramon, that Eric Bieniemy is heading to the Washington Commanders. And I want to ask the people how Titans fans feel about that, considering you had an opening here.
Yeah.
And you promoted from within instead of getting the guy with 2 rings in the last 4 years who was looking for an OC job. But before we do that, we go to the phone lines at 615-737-1045. Josh in Franklin, Kentucky leads us off this morning. Hey, Josh.
Morning, Josh.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, and I know you guys have already maximized your XFL coverage. So I'll try to segue into it because I watched that Tennessee-Kentucky game, and speaking of inept offenses lacking next-level talent, let's talk about the XFL. But I really actually, you took the words out of my mouth, Ramon. Watching that game, you saw the offensive lines were terrible. And I've always said that the actual deciding factor of winning and losing is always on the lines in the NFL. Is there really that big of a talent gap for the offensive line? Because you saw it didn't seem like a drop-off as much in every other aspect. But the offensive lines were absolutely abysmal in every game.
Yeah. Oh,
Appreciate the call,
great
Josh.
question, Josh. Yes, I know that's the separator. It really is. The protection of guys, of like really being good at protections and run blocking. Like it was even that bad in run blocking. Like as much crap as Dennis Daly got this year, he'd probably still be the best player in the XFL. Like the separator of talent to where some guys, truthfully, are just big. And then some guys just have no skill. So Coach Tom, like our coaches call us big skill because it really does take a skill to play on the OL. And I think that's why more and more people now are starting to pay attention to it because it's not just everybody can go in front of a man and block. I hate when I see coaches that say, hey, get in front of your man. Like, no, that's not how you play OL. There is a technique to it. I hate to say there's a science to it, but there's understanding of angles, understanding of power, knowing how to combo block well. Those games this past weekend was probably the biggest non-selling point, biggest selling point for guys not wanting to go down to that level. Other than just the pay isn't the NFL too. So when you look at the idea that quarterbacks and wide receivers and running backs want to show their skill set off, but they have no time, you look at a game this past weekend and Will, I didn't know A.J. McCarron was that mobile. Like legitimately, he had no time. He was scrambling. He was taking a whole bunch of hits. The separator is the bigs, D-line and O-line too. And I'm gonna put more emphasis on the OL because that's where I know it's separate. Because D-linemen can just go forward and it's controlled chaos with them. Us, we got to be controlled at all time. And that's why you find in the NFL now close to 35-year-old offensive linemen.
Right.
Because it's so hard to find good ones.
It's just crazy. The last time we heard from A.J. McCarron, it was 2019 Titans-Texans for the Titans to get the last wild card spot in the AFC.
Wow.
To then go to New England, beat them.
Yeah.
go to Baltimore, beat them, and all of a sudden, just because the Texans sat Deshaun Watson,
Yeah.
and you were playing A.J. McCarron instead.
Jeez Louise.
Literally, that was the last time we heard from that guy.
And almost was the last time we heard from him, period, yesterday at the rate he was getting hit, Will.
Crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, the OL is probably where look at high school championship teams, Will. They usually have, even if they're small guys, their system of running and protecting.
Right.
You've seen like smaller OL in high school do really good, but the teams that got really big boys and know how to play and are aggressive, you got a real good squad.
So which is worse, offensive line play in the XFL or defense in the NBA All-Star game?
Yes.
Perfect.
You know what? I appreciate, like, I was listening to the commentary last night while watching the All-Star game. A lot of those guys are just saying, man, I'm here to pay the debt to what the fans have done for me. Like, I'm playing in this game as respect to the fan base of wanting to come watch us play ball. And I was just like, okay, so that explains no defense. It was amazing watching them dudes jump and dunk, though.
I know.
Goodness gracious.
Crazy. 615-737-1045 is our number this morning. So talking about Eric Bieniemy going to the Washington Commanders now officially. Associate head coach as well as offensive coordinator for Sam Howell in Washington. Should Titans fans feel upset or just disrespected in any way that Eric Bieniemy goes to Washington and didn't really give the Titans a chance, or the Titans didn't give him a chance and weren't willing to wait long enough to talk with him?
There were rumors that, he was supposed to take that interview, I feel like. And do you feel disrespected that your team didn't sell out for him? Maybe that's not the style that they want here. Or maybe you're too far away from the personnel to get Bieniemy what he needs to flex. Do I feel a certain way about it? I do, because that's the guy that everybody wanted too. And of course, you were told you're going to get McDonald's, and McDonald's was already at home in Tim Kelly. And I think that's the biggest letdown of it all. It's the idea that you know what Bieniemy's going to bring, but it's also the unknown too, because as much as Andy Reid gave him credit for it, we still won't know if it was Eric Bieniemy that was actually calling the plays. And then you got to give up the, assistant head coach too title. With as many moves that the Titans made this year, I don't think they were willing to give that title up too, which means also more pay.
Yeah, so you think in terms of the context of what the Titans wanted from an offensive coordinator, you don't think the Titans had the available personnel to make a run at a guy like him?
Too many other missing gaps, I feel like. I'd loved if they had at least brought him in. I think he was probably owed that here, considering there was an opening.
Sure.
Considering that, you waited that long to hire Tim Kelly or to name Tim Kelly anyhow. But if you look at the personnel of this team, maybe they talked to his agent and just said, you guys got way too far to go to be able to bring in a guy like Bieniemy. That's my only pushback on it, Will.
Here's my theory on this. I think now the conversation will quickly become on Bieniemy. If he's successful in Washington, even close to what he's done in Kansas City, that guy's a head coach pretty immediately.
Really fast.
I think this time next year, if the Washington Commanders are near the top of the NFC East and that team is competing and has double-digit wins, we're talking about Eric Bieniemy being a head coach this time next year. I think you could make the argument with the turnover that Mike Vrabel had to force this offseason.
Yeah.
He would rather have someone he could take a little bit bigger of a gamble on who's going to stick around for 3 years.
So, and I think that's the point, though, too, Will.
Right.
Is that aspect of it. Like, Bieniemy brings a whole lot of fanfare and just media coverage with them, too.
Sure.
And Rivera is still the coach with the Commanders, correct? I think Rivera may be more out than in when it comes to how long he wants to coach. And I think this may end up being, to your point, an easy transition to Bieniemy taking over a head coach if he does do that. I've heard numerous times that Rivera is a guy, man, that really looks out for his people in the NFL as far as the coaches go, the culture of what they're asked to do. And he's a guy, man, that I really look at and say, well, maybe he's just setting them up because he just survived cancer not that long ago. He's had other stuff of changing jobs. But Washington is a prime place. Sam Howell, I don't think, is going to be their quarterback for a very long time, Will.
Here's the thing that concerns me about this. And this is where I feel like Titans fans have a legitimate case to just be a little bit nervous. Is Mike Vrabel ever going to be willing to hire a head coach type as his offensive coordinator who garners that much authority? Because I just feel like in that building, this is Mike Vrabel's show. And Mike Vrabel gained a little bit more authority this offseason with the way things went down with John Robinson, where all the reports tell us that while he's not the general manager, clearly, Ran Carthon's the GM. Right. He's ultimately calling the shots there. You went and found a general manager who is going to collaborate. How many times do we hear that? Who's going to collaborate with Mike Vrabel and work with what Mike needs. I just don't see Mike Vrabel going to get another OC like that who is on the doorstep of being a head coach.
Yeah.
Because of the continuity that we talked about.
Right.
It's what Nick Saban's looking for at Alabama. I mean, it's what every head coach wants is an OC that's going to be there long term.
Yep.
But ultimately, I just don't think Mike Vrabel wants to cede any authority like that he doesn't have to give up. This goes back to what we've been saying all offseason, that
true.
Todd Downing wasn't perfect, but Todd Downing was still running that offense the way Mike wanted it to be run.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why Todd was able to go pick up and get another job despite the arrest, despite, going backwards as far as overall offense for this team. And I know injuries were a huge part of that. And, you throw the and out there when it comes to defending Downing and what they kind of went through. But the idea of bringing in Bieniemy, you look at it and say, to this point until something happens in free agency, you still have Derek, you still have Tannehill, as far as we know, correct? And if not, you got something similar to either player. You either got a young guy that's young enough that you can't really build off of, and you don't know if this team is in a position to pick a quarterback to at 11. I think those are one of the issues that you're dealing with when you're trying to go get a guy like Bieniemy. Like, that to me is more of a head coach, full culture type move. And I think this organization has good bones as far as knowing what the offense want to do, knowing what the defense is going to do, and knowing the mindset of the head coach. You look at that situation with Bieniemy and Vrabel, I think they'd have knocked heads way too often. Just, hey, I got this. Get out of my way. Because we've heard that a little bit too. Bieniemy can be a little edgy at times, but I think that's most coaches when it comes down to it. Vrabel has been of the mindset as of late. He doesn't care where good ideas come from. This guy's got now, from what we expect, from what was thrown out there, that they got 3 potential offensive coordinators on this staff that's coaching. How that's going to come about, too, Will, I'm not sure.
Got a lot of cooks in that kitchen.
It's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And you got a few guys in new positions, too. You got a new O-line coach, new DB coach, new running back coach. Like, there's a lot of newness when it comes to this type of offense that the Titans are planning to go forward with this 2023 season. But Bieniemy's the hot name. Just because it's hot, do you actually go with it? Josh McDaniels was a hot name.
Right. Well, and that's as a head coach. I mean, Eric Bieniemy's proven that he can do the job at a high level. That's my concern with Mike Vrabel. I like Mike Vrabel a lot. I think he's a great head coach.
Yeah.
My concern with him is that there are a lot of personalities who are really good football coaches that he's going to butt heads with that I don't think should be a determining factor.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody can coach at a high level, I don't care if you butt heads with them or not. Figure it out. The job's not to get along in the building. The job is to win football games. So ultimately, if that guy is going to help you win football games more than Tim Kelly, you make it work with that guy and you try to figure it out, in my opinion.
Do you think they got tired of searching for the OC? Or was Tim Kelly the guy the entire time? Is that what gets you a little bit?
That a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they waited a long time,
they did.
and the theory we had was starting to become Matt Nagy.
Yeah.
Because I think we were both kind of thinking that made a little bit more sense than Bieniemy because you weren't going to have to make as hard of an offensive scheme shift.
Right.
With what Nagy has done at a couple of different stops. And then you just go ahead and hire Tim Kelly when you could have done that before the Senior Bowl.
Did that way before, Will. And I get that. That's the portion of being a fan where the letdown and where the, hey, you're losing me type of mindset comes into play when you got fans like that.
Sure.
So I'm here for that, too.
I think Titans fans have a right to just be a little bit – the radar is up on the way all this happened.
Everything moving forward.
I don't think Titans fans should be super upset about this, but I feel like I understand the disappointment that you didn't at least give the guy an interview and wait an extra week.
I get that.
615-737-1045 is the number this morning. We go to John in the borough up next on the phone lines. Hey, John.
Morning, John.
Good morning, everybody. First off, congratulations, Derek. I think it's a long time coming to get out of Andy Reid's shadow.
Yep.
And that's not a big man joke. But
could be.
It's not. But the knock on Bieniemy has been that Andy Reid calls the plays, and he's got Pat Mahomes, who's a generational talent at quarterback, and that's been the thing that's hurt him, quote unquote, hurt him.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to that. I think it's probably a lot more nuanced than anybody wants to have a discussion for at 6:35 in the morning without any coffee. But it is what it is. I'm excited for him. The other side of that is I'm glad he didn't come to Tennessee. And the reason being is he's a head coach in waiting kind of gig.
Yeah.
Like, he's a head coach in waiting kind of name, just like you guys pointed out. If he turns Washington, who is an absolute dumpster fire, into something that is remotely resembling a professional football team, he's getting a head coaching job. And we've seen with Arthur Smith. We've seen with Todd Downing. We've seen with Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
Our offense needs that kind of continuity, and I think Tim Kelly brings that for us. Us getting Tim Kelly and Washington getting Eric Bieniemy isn't a bad thing for us. It just didn't work for us. That particular hire wouldn't have worked for us and what we're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the call, John. I just feel like, okay, well, if you're going to make that argument, then keep Tim Kelly on staff and hire him the next year once Bieniemy goes and becomes a head coach.
Yeah. But you don't know how it's going to work either with Bieniemy calling the plays. And I think that's a fair conversation to have. I want to see, because being an OC, you do have to manage your position coaches. You do got to manage your players a little bit more. Seeing him in his first role be able to do that, I think is what's going to be necessary for Bieniemy moving forward. Tim Kelly has called plays for the Houston Texans. But it's okay to still call it a letdown, Will, when it comes down to the hiring until we see what's next. And let's just go that route. Like, we didn't know what Hendon Hooker was going to be. Everybody was on the Joe train, remember? Like, when he first started, was just speaking about the University of Tennessee quarterback situation. Everybody was on the Joe train until you saw what Hendon Hooker can do.
That happens more in college, though, than it does the NFL.
I know, but as far as, like, play calling in this league and being able to say, hey, you did it at another place, but can you do it here? I think that's what's going to be fascinating, honestly, about Tim Kelly, because this isn't the Houston Texans that he had. He doesn't have Deshaun Watson. And Bieniemy, too. This isn't the Kansas City Chiefs that are now the Washington Commanders. Like, these are real big challenges, and I'd almost say this has got to be one of the top storylines for almost anybody. Also, the offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators for Philly, too. Like, these one-shot hot years for these type of coaches, what does it actually amount to with them being head coaches?
And Bieniemy is going to a Washington team that has not finished in the top 15 in total offense in terms of points or yardage in the last 6 years. The thing I don't believe about this, I don't believe Eric Bieniemy chose the Commanders over the Titans. I feel like the Titans went a different direction.
Oh.
Because how in the world are you choosing a guy that has attempted 19 passes in Sam Howell over what the Titans have? I know the Titans don't have a lot on offense. Mm-hmm. They finished in the top 15 in yards or points in the last 6 years. The Washington Commanders have not. 615-737-1045 is our number. And coming up next, one quarterback that could be on the move this offseason has made a big power move to try to gain a long-term deal. We'll dive into a quarterback situation in the NFC, also in the NFC East. Coming up next on our Moan, Kayla, and Will, 1045 The Zone.
It's Ramon Foster for Secure Alarm. When I mention that name, it's one of those things like if you know them, then you kind of know, and you know how good they are. And if you're like me, then I know who you are, too. You're the ones who walk around your yard every day getting mad when you see weeds. You obsessively care about your grass. Your spouse and friends tell you that you talk about your grass more than you talk about anything else. That's because you want to be the envy of your neighbors. I'm talking to you, but right now, it is the time to be applying crabgrass and broadleaf weed control to your lawn, and I have the people you need to call. They are Secure Lawn, and there is nobody better. Secure Lawn has been building up a solid reputation in Middle Tennessee homeowners for 20 years, offering neighborly advice and legendary service. Thing is, too, they're family-owned, operated, and they are local. They don't make you sign any kind of contracts. In fact, if you are unhappy with your service, they will do everything they can to make it right. And if you're still unhappy, they will give you your money back on your last treatment, and this is unheard of customer service. They offer free service calls, and if you need something in between treatments, they'll come back and treat it for free. They protect all types of grass, residential, commercial, and even athletic fields for you coaches that got to get your stuff ready for the spring. So get a head start on your yard and call Secure Lawn, 615-893-8455, or go to securelawn.com.
Hour number 1 continues on the Monday morning edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will live with you this morning. Holiday, but we're working.
Always on, baby.
You might be too. Well, making your way to your workplace this morning. 615-737-1045 if you would like to join us. Kayla Anderson will be working with us the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Looking forward to having her back in studio.
Yeah, traffic was a little stuffy this morning, too, man.
Was it really?
Yeah, coming from Simple Sumner County. 65 South, it was a little stuffy.
So New York Giants quarterback Daniel Jones is in the process of making an agent change with a new contract and free agency on the horizon. Guy's been represented by CAA since being the 6th overall pick out of Duke in 2019. The expectation is he will join Athletes First in search of a long-term deal.
You know why I laugh at that?
Why is that?
That's the quarterback agency.
Is it really?
Oh, my gosh.
Okay.
Athletes First? They got a lot of people. I don't want to misquote who their clients are, but CAA is huge. CAA got some quarterbacks too. Like they do a bunch of stuff for entertainment side of everything. As far as contracts go, they're huge with that. CAA does their thing. But Athletes First, yeah, they got a boatload of quarterbacks. So they probably know how to market and say, hey, we got a guy that makes this and done this with what Danny Dimes has done. Your market, like they really, as Coach Mack say, there's the NFL draft and then there's the quarterback draft. There's NFL free agency, and then there's a quarterback world.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a difference in who you need to represent you. Not saying that you can't go do your thing. I think Jalen Hurts got a different crew around him, but he also has like 5 representatives because he's hitting different facets of his career. But yeah, Athletes First is who the quarterbacks go to.
And the big quarterback that they have currently on their list of clients?
Who?
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Micah Parsons, Michael Pittman for the Titans. You've got a couple of guys who are Athletes First guys, including Malik Willis.
Mm-hmm. Malik Willis is in that group.
Robert Woods as well. So does Daniel Jones get a long-term deal this offseason?
I think he does.
You think from the Giants?
Yeah, I think he should. If the New York Giants are smart, that's going to be a more contract-friendly quarterback deal for him. He's proven that he can win for you. And I think it gives them a bit of stability. I've always thought Danny Dimes was good. I have.
Really?
Yes. I knew he had the potential. And maybe I'm correlating this to him being a Coach Cutcliffe guy. So those guys come out seasoned as quarterbacks sometimes, you know? And maybe his reputation, but I liked him. He had everything you needed as far as his ability to play the position. It's just New York media is super hard, Will. And that team has had how many head coaches in his tenure? 3 head coaches since the time he's been there, or at least switching of the offensive coordinator, Judge, somebody before him, and now you got Dayball.
Yeah, and Mike Kafka too, who is going to stay there after being linked to head coaching jobs this past offseason, or this past coaching carousel season. The thing about Daniel Jones that I just think is so important is that once he had a better offensive line, he was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, he never had a left tackle that was worth anything. Like, he didn't have an entire offensive line that was worth anything, really, until this past year.
He's just now starting to get it.
And Andrew Thomas kind of figured it out, the Georgia tackle. You had a right tackle that kind of grew up a little bit this past year, and then that entire offensive line. So I think he's a great quarterback. I really do. I think Daniel Jones is good enough to win you a Super Bowl if everything else is right around him.
Yep. By the way, Dak Prescott, also Deshaun Watson, represented by Athletes First.
There you go. So that is an interesting one. I think that division is going to continue to be really fascinating.
Josh Allen, too. Yeah.
In the NFC East, because that's it's shoved down our throats in prime time because the Cowboys, it's got so many brand name teams in it.
They do.
So we probably, as media and as radio hosts, like correct too much to talking about that division just because they're put in front of our eyes so much. But there really are a fascinating amount of storylines coming out of that division this year between Bieniemy and Washington.
Yep.
Dallas kind of stuck with Dak Prescott a little bit.
And their head coach, too, and the offensive coordinator getting fired, basically.
You obviously have the Eagles who just lost the Super Bowl.
Oh.
And then this New York Giants team that's actually decent for the first time since, prime Eli Manning was playing.
And we're talking about them, and it's not in the fashion that they have a under 500 team going to the playoffs. Like, they actually are competitive right now.
Right.
And they also hate each other, too. Like, that's like watching those teams play. Like you said, maybe it's the history of it, Will, but I do enjoy watching them be good, though, or at least being in the conversation. Washington has always had the market. They just hardly ever have the teams in today's football. You know what I'm saying? Like, they can't really find a quarterback. They have really good defenses and skilled players, but nothing ever gets shown from it because they've had a lack of stability, partly because, or mainly because, of their ownership, too. Like, that's a big issue when it comes down to the Washington Commanders also. They had to go through a whole name change for other reasons. Like, there's a lot going on when it comes to what Washington is. And then you get Rivera in, and now they're starting to look like a team.
615-737-1045 is the number. And coming up next, if you can make free throws, the Tennessee Volunteers might want you. They're free for a reason, Ramon Foster.
Yeah, they are.
Not if you were wearing an orange uniform in Rupp Arena on Saturday afternoon. Was not great.
No.
Not great for the Tennessee Volunteers. We dive into the worst element of this loss in Rupp Arena on Saturday. Take your phone calls at 615-737-1045 and talk with Ben McKee coming up at 7:20. Some Vols basketball. The same discussion, but still Vols basketball discussion next on Ramon K. Little Will, 1045 The Zone.
Finding value is important all the time, but especially these days. And that's why I'm so confident in recommending Genesis Diamonds. Value is the core principle that Genesis was founded on. The owner is a former diamond wholesaler who used to sell diamonds to upscale jewelry stores, but he hated how much they marked up their prices when they sold them to their customers. So he cut them out and started selling direct to the public at fair and honest prices that eliminated the traditionally fat retail profit margins. That direct importer advantage still applies at Genesis Diamonds. That's why they beat everyone else's price on GIA certified diamonds. But it's more than just a price. At Genesis, you get a higher diamond quality with the best cut for maximum brilliance. No commission salespeople, a personal, relaxed shopping experience that I've experienced for myself, and free service for life on any purchase. You also get the best rings money can buy from the top designers in America. These are handcrafted, American-made rings from the most sought-after designers, names like Tacori and Viragia, and many more. So this year, as you think about getting engaged or celebrating a milestone of any kind, remember Genesis Diamonds. Best selection, highest quality, guaranteed best value, and locally owned company with amazing international connections. Genesis Diamonds, located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
7 o'clock. Good morning. I'm Jonathan Schaefer from the Superbook.com sports desk. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won the Daytona 500. He won it in double overtime and under caution. His first Daytona 500 victory in his career. To the ice, the Wild defeated the Predators 4-3 Sunday in Minnesota. The Preds split their games over the weekend, defeating Florida 7-3 on Saturday. To the NBA, Team Giannis defeated Team LeBron 184-175. Jason Tatum scored an all-star game record 55 points and won the game MVP. Women's hoops yesterday, the Lady Vols defeated Auburn 83-76. Vanderbilt topped Kentucky 79-57. MTSU over FIU 85-46, and Belmont defeated Missouri State 68-58. Men's hoops yesterday, Drake defeated Belmont 70-56. College baseball opening over the past weekend. Vanderbilt routed Texas 12-2 to take 2 of 3 over the weekend at the College Baseball Showdown in Arlington, Texas. And the number 2 Vols took down UC San Diego 7-0, getting their first win of the season after dropping their first 2 games. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
And the show goes on into hour number 2 on the Monday morning edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. Kayla Anderson enjoying her vacation, another very well-deserved day off for her this morning. But we've got 75% of the show here rocking with you on a Monday morning with 11-year NFL veteran and Vaughn for Life, Ramon Foster.
Hey. Okay, little flair on that thing this morning.
Who the hell are you?
Ramon.
You know.
That's appropriate.
Say my name.
Say Ramon.
Do what? Say my name. I don't have a damn clue who the hell you are.
The bad guy.
Do you respect the bad guy?
I can be that. Ramon. I played the bad guy decently at times.
Decently. That's right.
Yeah.
When you choose to.
When I choose to. And I hate going that way, man. I'm here for a good time.
We never settle for second best, but we do have the best producer in the world behind the glass, Jonathan Schaefer.
The best producer in the world!
In the world.
Thank you, sir.
Craig.
Thank you.
And I'm Will Bowling. 615-737-1045 our number. And if you can make a free throw, please report to Thompson Bowling Arena post-haste. Tennessee missed its last 8 free throws. 8 on Saturday in Rupp Arena.
Hard out here, Will. You can't even call it corrupt arena when you out here playing the way they
can't.
do. You can't.
You could have built him a new one with all those bricks.
Yeah, you could have. And not just that, man. Legitimately just guys getting ahead of themselves, whether it be fouls, whether it just be play, whether it's just lack of just shoots, just shots going up. Like, Will, it was bad, man. Like, that doesn't look like a top 10 team. And I know that's the rhythm of it. And Shafe kind of alluded to it earlier. Maybe they are the ultimate, matchup disadvantage for the Vols when it comes to how they play Kentucky as of late. That Kentucky team's not that good. So it makes you feel even worse about where your team is when you expect them to be good and they're not winning against teams like this. Mixed match, whatever you want to call it, versus Kentucky. And then in the same week, you beat the number 1 team in the country. And I know it was at home, but you let Kentucky beat you at home and on the road this year. When it's not, air quotation marks, their year to be doing these types of things, Will. First time for Barnes to kind of allow that to happen. And you know what I say? Even the bro clock is right 2 times a day. So this was their year to actually get right, Will.
And now you're looking at a scenario where Tennessee's got a lot of work to do to finish with a double bye in the SEC tournament.
Yeah.
Like, there's a chance Tennessee's number 5 and not number 4 in the SEC tournament now that Kentucky has the tiebreaker over them.
Oh, my gosh.
For SEC tournaments.
Yeah.
You still got to play A&M, who's ahead of you.
Yeah.
They came back and won again over the weekend. Mm-hmm. Alabama and A&M will be 1 and 2.
Hot right now.
And then you've got Tennessee, Kentucky, and Auburn. Auburn, who you play to finish the season on the road, who also lost. That was good news for Tennessee.
Yeah.
Their loss to Vandy over the weekend in Memorial
Soak it up, Vandy fans.
Man.
Soak it up.
Vandy's got to go to Rupp, and Vandy's going to try to back their way into the NCAA tournament now. They got a lot of work to do.
They do got a lot of work to do. But when we asked that question earlier about Stack, like it was a few weeks back, is he safe or not? I've always kind of thought he was safe regardless with how they're going to go about approaching, his coaching style and the players that he's getting into. He needs time to get guys stable inside his organization. But what does that say about Coach Pearl in Auburn? For them to be losing the way they are with a savvy older team too. Like basketball is one of those things. 1 or 2 players are just the right run will put you behind the 8 ball. And that's where the Vols have been as of late. And that's where watching Auburn as of late, that's where they're hanging out too. It's just like, well, when are you going to decide to turn it on? And I think that's the most frustrating part about it is where is the switch for you to be on when everybody's gunning for you?
The thing about Vanderbilt too, Rick Barnes and Ron Slay have been telling the people for months that guy is a good basketball coach, Jerry Stackhouse.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
I mean, Rick Barnes has said it for years that he thinks Jerry Stackhouse is one of the best coaches in the SEC. Slay's been saying it. Anybody who listened to Slay, with all the analysis that he'll give about these Tennessee Vandy games, it would always end with, now, Stackhouse is a good coach and he needs time. The second he beat Tennessee, he was safe.
Yep.
Going forward to the next season.
100%.
Yeah.
Now
he's real safe.
Real safe. I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Heupel got more safe when he beat Bama. I mean, legitimately, right?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, of course, the season they had, but to knock off that monster, and Stack's been dealing with the same thing in state. You do want to win in state in basketball, or any sport for that matter.
Tennessee ranks in the middle of the pack in the SEC in free throw shooting. Vols were shooting 72.7% at the line entering Saturday. That was 5th in the SEC. Problem now is that as Jemai Meshack and Tobe Awaka get a lot more minutes, those 2 guys are 2 of your weaker free throw shooters.
Yeah.
Tobe Awaka is shooting 44% from the line.
Whew.
And Jemai Meshack is not much better.
That's like me in the 7th grade, Will.
Santiago Vescovi was only one of 2 players to reach double figures. Jemai Meshack, we talked about last week, by the way, Ramon, that Rupp Arena will give standing ovations or give applause to opposing players. Mm-hmm. Jemai Meshack got an ovation from the Kentucky crowd at the end of the game on Saturday.
Wow.
And Rick Barnes and John Calipari actually was asked about that. And John Calipari, in his opening comment, said, "I'm glad our crowd gave applause to Meshack. He deserved it the way he played."
You've said that time and time again.
We said it Friday.
Yeah, you did.
That they will give applause to opposing players who have good days. Jemai Meshack was that player. Career high 16 points on 7 of 12 shooting, 8 rebounds to go along with 2 assists and 2 steals.
Mm-hmm. Tennessee
finished the game shooting 37% from the floor, 22% from 3, 29% from the free throw line. 29%.
29.
4 of 14, missed their last 8, including all 6 in the second half. Can't happen.
Cannot happen. I just got a text also from one of my sources that said Tennessee has to have a guy. Is that the separator in most things?
And I want to ask Ben McKee this coming up in 10 minutes. I think they found one on Saturday in Rupp Arena.
You do.
I think the second half for Santiago Vescovi, we could look back at this game on Saturday as a turning point for him over the rest of this season. The dude was different than we've seen him play at any point this season in the second half. And obviously, he's been battling that shoulder problem for a lot of this season. Had all 17 of his points in the second half, 7 of 10 from the floor, because he started going to the rim and attacking the basket and trying to beat guys. And he was beating guys off the dribble.
That's what I say. Instead of trying to hang around the perimeter.
We don't see him beat a lot of guys off the dribble and just go to the rim and try to get fouled. And he's one of your better free throw shooters. I'm great with him going to the rim, trying to get fouled and shoot free throws.
Yeah.
Much more than I am some of these other guys. But he was the bright spot in that second half. Tennessee outscored Kentucky by 8 in the second half. Obviously, that's not good enough to only celebrate a second half performance against a team that is on the bubble.
No.
And this is what concerns me, is that if Tennessee becomes a 3 seed where they're ranked right now, Kentucky is going to be an 11.
Yep.
If the tournament started tomorrow, there's a good chance you have to play an 11 seed in the second round as a 3. So you play the winner of a 6 versus 11 matchup.
And that's what I was going to say. I don't know how confident I feel about that. Like, because all things necessary for them to be playing tougher has been in front of them. Playing Bama was good. The way you lost those 2 buzzer beaters the same way, and then you go to Rupp and do this?
Yeah.
Not okay.
615-737-1045. Before we go to break, we go to Paul in Franklin. Up next this morning on the phone lines. Hey, Paul.
Hey, good morning, brothers. How y'all doing?
Good morning, Paul.
All right. I guess Kayla still got her toes in the sand somewhere. I
That's
hope
right.
she's having a great time, brother. Hey, let's get out to old Tennessee. Look, Big Ragu, man, we all know what a grandfather clock is. Y'all know what a grandfather clock is, I know.
Yes, sir.
And in that grandfather clock, you got a pendulum that swings back and forth. Well, that's what this team does, man. They are incredibly hard to gauge how they are. They can play extremely well, and then they can play terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And getting towards tournament time, that's just not going to cut it. You have to be on the pendulum side of playing well all the time, and they just swing back and forth too much. Now, I said at the beginning of the season that this team was the best team since we had the Schofield-Grant teams. Now, I'm taking that back, Big Ragu, because I know Santiago's a great ball player, and yes, he turned it up in the second half. But with the Schofield-Grant team, we had a solid man in the middle. When we fed Grant down low, there was a good chance he was either going to get fouled and go to the free throw line, and he made free throws, or he was going to make a basket, or he was going to do both. They just don't have that stability like that, a good inside-out game like they had then that created points. And somebody's going to have to change this and change it quick. Though when we get to the tournaments, especially the NCAA tournaments, if we swing back and forth like that pendulum on the grandfather clock, we're going to get put out, and that's just how it is. And it's a shame because that's a talented team. I'm hopefully that Phillips and James, when they get back in there, will create some more stability. But, hey, we got to see that's why they play the game. God bless you. Go Vols, and y'all take care. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Appreciate the call. I'll say one thing about this, and this is not something that determined the outcome of the game. This is just a point that I continue to make about college basketball. Nobody wants to see a free throw contest over the last 12 minutes of a game.
No.
When both teams are in the bonus with like 12 to 13 minutes left. Like Ian Eagle on the CBS call is even like, well, we're going to get a free throw contest down the stretch here. It's ridiculous. It is awful. Just, I mean, there are so many other things I'd rather see in a college basketball game.
And it wasn't
just
like
free
they were
throws.
out of whack the entire game. They just called it tight.
And it was both directions. And I just have no time for it at all. 615-737-1045. Coming up next, Ben McKee joins us. Our friend from Go Vols 247. What about Kentucky was so hard for Tennessee to crack this year? We'll ask him that. Get the recap out of Rupp Arena. Coming up next on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. 1045 The Zone. Hey, it's Will Bowling here for my friends at Lee Company. I want to ask you how your home heating system is doing. Well, odds are you probably found out over the past week as it got pretty chilly over the weekend once again. Is your home heating system keeping up with the cold weather outside? Well, right now, Lee Company is going to offer you a great deal. You're going to get $1,250 off a new HVAC system or special financing for up to 60 months. And you can visit leecompany.com/promotions for more information on this great deal and many others when you trust the folks who have been trusted in this community for nearly 80 years. Since 1944, they're open 24/7. They've got over 1,600 employees, and they're involved in our communities as well. So get $1,250 off a new HVAC system or special financing for up to 60 months with my friends at Lee Company. And you can give them a call at 615-567-1000. They're online at leecompany.com. That's Lee Company, all you need. It's about Kayla and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors on 104.5 The Zone. Coming up in 1 hour, the head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers, Josh Heupel, joining us live this morning. Holiday for many, but we're still here. We're still here.
We're still here.
With Ramon Foster.
Never
Jonathan
not working.
Schaefer. I'm Will Bowling. Day off for Kayla Anderson this morning. Also still here is our friend Ben McKee. Go Vols 247 joining us this morning on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great, although I don't know how I feel about you two setting me up for failure this morning.
What's
leading
that?
off for Josh Heupel and the great Teresa Walker. So don't know how I feel about that.
You think we would do you like that intentionally?
Ben, we've got good home run hitters, but we got to have a guy to get on base and give us a couple of extra runs of support early on in this game.
Well, that's fair, and I appreciate you pretending like I can lead off for the 98 Yankees against your Atlanta Braves.
Okay.
But, yeah, I do think you would do that to me, Ramon, because for some reason 104.5 has it out for Ben McKee. Blaine and Mickey had me on after the Auburn game, that debacle a couple of weeks ago, and now y'all are having me on after the debacle that was Kentucky this weekend. Nobody wants to call me after they beat Texas or after they beat Alabama. So, yeah, I do think you have it out for me, Ramon.
Man, this is the thing. I was bragging on you in the 6 o'clock hour, man, because Will made a monstrous statement saying, hey, go get your quarterback. And I know we share the same interests, okay? Wink, wink. Go get your quarterback that can afford to have his own permanent parking spot in the NFL parking lot. We know who had that, okay? And Will wants a quarterback like that. That's all I'm saying. So I bragged on you for a little bit.
We made this point, Ben, because Ramon said, hey, you aren't taking Ben's parking spot in the Steelers facility. And I said, you know what? The Titans need a quarterback who has his own parking spot.
They have Josh Dobbs.
Had him on the show last week. Friend of the show.
Friend of the show,
Josh Dobbs.
man.
That's fair.
Ben, don't make this between us. We don't want war between Knoxville and Nashville. We already got Memphis versus Nashville, so let's not do that one, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Ben can tell you all about my arguments with Memphis back in the day, but a story for another time. Ben, what about Kentucky is such a difficult matchup for this Tennessee basketball team?
I don't think they are a difficult matchup.
Really?
To be honest with you.
Okay.
I think in both games, Tennessee did not show up with the right mentality. I did not think that they were interested in playing basketball in the first half outside of Jemai Mashak, and that is very disappointing considering what they just did on Wednesday night, knocking off the number one team in the country. And then you go up north to Rupp Arena. Kentucky is desperate because it desperately needed to beat Tennessee to get into the NCAA tournament. And now, unless they just completely collapse, they are going to get into the NCAA tournament because they beat Tennessee twice. Yep. And they just did not have the passion or the necessary energy, in my opinion, at tip-off. Again, outside of Jemai Mashak, he was the only one that was there for it from opening tip, and I think that's very disappointing for a veteran basketball team in a rivalry game on the road when you can kind of deliver a knockout punch to the team in college basketball that you definitely hate the most. I thought that was very disappointing. So Kentucky obviously still has a ton of talent, even though it has been a very disappointing season for them.
Yeah.
It would not be surprising at all to see them get into the NCAA tournament and win a couple of games because they do have talent. And Oscar Tshiebwe is really difficult to deal with. But in that first game, Tennessee jumps out to an 8-0 lead, and I thought they took the foot off the gas because they were reading the press clippings and understood that Kentucky was really, really bad. And I thought they took their foot off the gas because of that. And then I just didn't think that they showed up with the right mentality on Saturday. And again, I think that's very disappointing.
And these are problems, Ben, that shouldn't be problems for as veteran a team as Tennessee is. And I feel like we're just talking about the same issues again, the long stretches on offense that lead to a big deficit where you allow a team to go on too big of a run, and then you're scratching and clawing your way back, and some good things happen, but those things happen much later than they should have. And we'll get into Vescovy and Mashak and their performances as well. But do you feel like we really learned anything about this team on Saturday? Because to me, it just feels like we're having the same conversations we've been having all season.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think we learned anything new. Feels like the same team that we've come to know. I mean, it's a team of inconsistency. That's what I think of them as. They are a team that is capable of making a deep run in March, making a Final Four, Elite Eight type of run, but they're also a team that is capable of we've all been kind of saying opening weekend and second round, but now because they've lost a couple of games that they shouldn't have for the last 7, you've lost to Vanderbilt on the road, and that that loss looks a little bit better now because Stackhouse really has Vanderbilt rolling at the moment.
Yeah.
And you've lost to Kentucky, you've lost to Missouri, you've lost to several bubble teams. You've lost to a Florida team that isn't going to make the NCAA tournament. Tennessee was on the verge of having a 2 seed, possibly being a 1 seed, and now they're going to be not only fighting to play on Friday at the SEC tournament, be one of the top 4 seeds in the SEC tournament, but they'll be lucky to get a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament at this point, because not only have they struggled against bubble teams the last couple of weeks, it doesn't get any easier these last 2 weeks of the regular season. They go to Texas A&M tomorrow night, and Texas A&M is red hot at the moment. They play South Carolina on Saturday. That should be an automatic W. But then next week, Arkansas comes to town, and Arkansas slowly been getting a little bit better. And then you go to Auburn next weekend, and Auburn's going to want revenge after how they thought that they lost the game in Thompson-Boling a couple of weeks ago. So it doesn't get any easier, and they do have, the potential to make a deep run in March. But I guess the one thing that I've kind of readjusted my thinking on after this past Saturday, although I don't know that we learned anything necessarily new, it's the fact that, okay, yes, they can potentially make a deep run, but can they actually make a deep run if they're going to be this inconsistent? If we know they're going to be this inconsistent, are they actually capable of making a deep run? And I don't know that they can at this point.
Ben, I know, just Josiah Jordan James is out and Julian Phillips is out, but like, when is this team, man? Like, legitimately, the question is, we know they can win and lose some, but when are they actually good? Like, when have you known them to go into the arena and say, yeah, we're good today? When were those moments?
Whenever they play in Thompson-Boling, because that's when they've been at their best this season, when they've knocked off Texas, when they've knocked off Auburn, although that basketball game was not pretty. And, heck, even Auburn's becoming a bubble team slowly but surely. And you did have the debacle against Kentucky earlier in the season, and boy, does Tennessee owe Chris Lofton one. Not necessarily Tennessee itself, but these players owed Chris Lofton one after allowing him to lose to Kentucky on his jersey retirement day, and then Chris was also sitting behind the bench on Saturday to watch Saturday's debacle. So the year that Tennessee retires his jersey number, the team that did not think he was good enough to play college basketball sweeps his team. So these players owe him one, but that's a separate conversation. But they've been good at home, which also makes you worry about the NCAA tournament, because you're not playing games at home, obviously, and fans can certainly travel and make it feel like a home environment. I think back to the Sweet 16 game a couple of years ago against Purdue, and Purdue, I would say it was probably 50-50 fan-wise, but there was a strong Tennessee contingent that kind of helps. So I kind of worry about this Tennessee team away from home, Ramon, because I think their style of play and how physical they are and how they get up under opponents, I think that really bodes well for them at home, because they get 21,000 screaming fans behind them, and that kind of shocks the opponent, and also kind of shocks the referees to maybe call things in Tennessee's favor. And you're not going to get that on the road. And they've had a couple of nice performances outside of Knoxville, but I really think back to the fact that it was over Thanksgiving down in the Bahamas against a Butler team that isn't sniffing the NCAA tournament, a USC team that's on the bubble, and then obviously a really good Kansas team. But that was several months ago, and that environment in the Bahamas will be much different than the one that they play in the NCAA tournament.
Is it in Barnes? I know it is when you win, right? But as spread out as all college basketball is, with the portal, with recruiting, with NIL, is it possible for Barnes to go out and get a couple high 5-stars like a Brandon Miller to kind of, I guess, put this team on his back a little bit? It seems to be that's a little bit of the issue too. Like, where's that type of guy at all times?
Yeah, I think.
Or does Barnes want to go get that kid too?
He does want to go get that kid. He does. Obviously, he brings in Julian Phillips, a 5-star, and I want to say he's brought in a 5-star 4 straight years, beginning with Josiah Jordan-James and then Jaden Springer and Keon Johnson and then Kennedy Chandler and then Julian Phillips this year. It's just a different level of 5-star. Not saying that they're not trying to bring in.
I know what you mean,
Brandon Miller, but they definitely haven't had that Brandon Miller level scorer coming in as a true freshman. And then I think that again is part of the recruiting profile that Rick wants. He and not saying that Brandon Miller doesn't play defense or anything along those lines. And Tennessee really liked Brandon Miller throughout the recruiting process. His dad just played at Alabama, and he kind of followed his footsteps to Alabama, from my understanding. But they could certainly use that level of scorer, and it's not just Brandon Miller either, though. Like Alabama has Jaden Bradley, the freshman point guard, who's really tough to deal with. And Tennessee was recruiting him, and Charles Bediako was somebody that Tennessee was after. There's several players on that Alabama roster that Tennessee was after on the recruiting trail. They just weren't able to bring them in. But I do think that there's a different recruiting profile for sure that Rick Barnes has than most, and that's probably somebody that is going to be more defensive ready than offensive ready. And I think that's fine, because you can certainly win with a defensive-minded style of play. And Rick Barnes believes that if you show up every night and you play defense and you rebound the basketball, you're going to give yourself a chance to win pretty much no matter what the offense is doing. And that is a very logical thought to have, but you just can't have the inconsistencies on offense to this extent that this team is having. But to your question, Ramon, I will say that Freddie DeLone, the young man who will kind of his signing class was for next season, but he enrolled early and is redshirting and working with the scout team in order to be ready for next season. He's a bucket. He is an absolute bucket, and I've seen him cook some of Tennessee's veterans in practice often this season. He's still not ready to play. He still has far more freshman moments than he does cooking veteran defenders on this basketball team. But he is somebody he was a borderline 5-star. He pretty much was a 5-star, but I think he was a spot or two outside of the 32 or 28 that they get the 5-star ratings. He is somebody that I think, no disrespect to those other 5-stars that I listed out a couple of minutes ago, Freddie is in a different category offensively upon his arrival. So I think you can pair him with Zakai Ziegler for next season, and that's going to be a really good point guard duo.
Ben McKee, Go Vols 247 with us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Ben, what's holding back Santiago Vescovi from being more assertive on offense like he was in the second half on Saturday? Because I think where the conversation about this team could change in the future is if he plays like that second half much more often for this Tennessee team, right?
For sure. They need that Santiago Vescovi, and I think it's because he's too selfless. He needs to be more selfish, and that sounds weird to say, but I think that's a general problem with this Tennessee team as a whole, as well, is that they're all such good teammates that it hurts them at times, that they pass on open shots because they're trying to get the next best open shot, whether it's Tyreek Key or Zakai Ziegler or Santiago Vescovi. They'll have an open look on the perimeter, but they'll pass it up because there's 18 seconds on the shot clock, and they want to try and absolutely maximize the shot selection, but then they pass up on that shot and end up having to shoot a contested jumper, or Olivier Cumlois gets the ball in his hands with the shot clock winding down and kind of has to shoot the ball with a defender in his face as well. So I think he needs to be more selfish. I really think that's it. I don't really think anything else is bothering him. I know he had the shoulder injury kind of twice this year that's caused him to miss 2 games at 2 separate times. And I'm sure that's a thing. I'm sure he's having to manage that. But I don't see him off to the side in practice trying to manage it like Josiah Jordan-James has had to do this year with the knee and the ankle. And to me, that tells me that the shoulder is fine. Again, I'm sure he's having to manage it, but I don't think it's an issue in preventing him from being what he can be offensively. I think he needs to be more assertive and be more like that second half Santiago Vescovi that we just saw, and something that's been a pet peeve of mine, so to speak, that he's done all year that he did not do in the second half against Kentucky, is he's actually really good at creating for himself and driving the basketball and getting to the rim, but he always kicks it out. He'll have a layup and he'll kick it out or do something else with it. He never takes the basket, and you saw him take 3 layups there when he got to the rim in the second half and instead of kick it out. So, and I think that also kind of set him up for success at the 3-point line as well. So I think he needs to be more assertive, and I think he needs to be more selfish. And that's something that a lot of his teammates need to do as well. Rick Barnes has been telling that to Tyreek Key. He's been telling that to Santiago. He's been telling that to a lot of guys.
Ben, on the way out, your biggest takeaway from Tennessee's weekend in Phoenix on the diamond, 1-2 with losses to Grand Canyon and Arizona, but what do you kind of take away from that weekend? And what can you tell us about this NCAA eligibility issue that the Vols have with one of their top prospects in Maui Ahuna?
Yeah, not an ideal situation to deal with right out of the gate. And Tennessee was caught off guard by having to deal with it. Maui Ahuna obviously transferring from Kansas after his coach at Kansas retired and decided to move on. And there's been an issue, obviously, of him trying to become eligible. And Tennessee did a couple of months ago report a self-violation of getting him on a plane out here, but before they should have, or something along those lines. And that has kind of caused a question with his availability. And from Tennessee's end of things, they expected this to be taken care of weeks ago. This has been a conversation within the Tennessee baseball program for a couple of months, but it didn't necessarily become one publicly because they fully anticipated it being cleared up with a couple of weeks to go before opening day. So when last week arrived and it wasn't resolved, that kind of threw them off. They were very, very, very surprised that it was not worked out ahead of time. I don't anticipate it being a long-term deal. We'll see exactly when Maui becomes available, but they certainly need his bat in the lineup. And you saw that this weekend. That was kind of my main takeaway, is that Tennessee is going to have plenty of pitching. It's going to be, can they take care of the little things throughout a baseball game that they need to do in order to win, especially when the offense isn't going to put up as many runs as they did last year. You've got to take care of the small details throughout the course of a baseball game, and they did not do that on Friday or Saturday, and they did that on Sunday, maybe against lesser competition, but they still did it. The offense is maybe not as long as we thought it would be coming into the season, but that's okay. Because, again, they still have the pitching to go win a lot of games, and they will win a lot of games because of that pitching. But the offense probably not where we thought it would be at the start, and they have potential within that lineup. It's just going to take some time to adjust and for guys to get comfortable in their new roles. And I think once they do, they'll really gel well with the pitching staff, and they'll be contenders all year to make it to Omaha. But it's kind of funny. We talk about Tennessee basketball. It was kind of a similar feeling watching Tennessee baseball, in the sense of they're going to be so reliant on pitching, just like the basketball team is with its defense, and offensive baseball may be frustrating at times early in the season, like it has been with the basketball team. So I thought it was kind of funny that the basketball team and baseball team are putting off the same vibes, and that was my biggest takeaway this weekend.
And Ben, as you know, I think every Tennessee fan would trade offenses in those two sports in order to score 52 points against Alabama.
Yes, they certainly would.
Absolutely.
That's what Tennessee baseball needs. They just need to schedule Alabama this weekend, and they'll be fine. They
just need that's a good point. They need Joe Milton, perhaps, also. But that's a conversation with Josh Heupel coming up.
Maliava.
That's right, him too. Ben McKee, our guest this morning on Remote. Kalen Will. Ben, always appreciate the time, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
Appreciate it, Ben.
Yes, sir. There's Ben McKee with us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, and we'll react to that and look specifically at what he said about Tennessee's eligibility situation with their top prospect in baseball, because that's some new information from Ben that has not been really out there very much that we'll get into coming up next on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
This is your Off the Track Racing Report, brought to you by Ferguson, your source for a healthy home.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won the Daytona 500 in double overtime, and under caution on Sunday, it was the longest running of the Great American Race.
This is unbelievable. This is the site of my last win back in 2017. We worked really hard. We had a couple shots last year to get a win and fell short. It was a tough season, but man, we got it done. Daytona 500.
The two overtimes pushed the event to a record 212 laps, a whopping 530 miles, and a dozen laps more than scheduled. For Stenhouse, it was his first Daytona 500 victory and his first Cup Series win since 2017. Defending Cup Series champion Joey Logano finished second, just barely behind Stenhouse when the caution was displayed on the track on the final lap. Christopher Bell finished third. Up next, Auto Club Speedway on Sunday in Fontana, California. Race start is set for 2:30 local time. I'm Jonathan Schaefer.
This has been your Off the Track Racing Report, brought to you by Ferguson, your source for a healthy home. Contractors rely on Ferguson HVAC for their extensive inventory of parts, supplies, and equipment. With convenient locations from Memphis to Knoxville and Bowling Green to Chattanooga, Ferguson is the nation's third leading wholesale distributor of HVAC and refrigeration products with top manufacturers including Ruud and Mitsubishi Electric. And with indoor air quality as a priority for all of us at work and home, Ferguson offers a wide variety of indoor air quality products, including top brands like Air Scrubber and Well Air, and many other brands to choose from. Ferguson HVAC has Tennessee contractors ready to meet your cooling, heating, and indoor air quality needs. For more information, visit ferguson.com/HVAC.
Monday morning edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will live with you on 104.5 The Zone. Hope you're having a good start to your week, a good weekend as well. With Ramon Foster, I'm Will Bowling. Kayla Anderson back with us the rest of the week. Jonathan Schaefer making the show happen. Josh Heupel coming up at 8:15 this morning. Looking forward to chatting with the head coach of the Tennessee Football Volunteers. Wow. Good stuff with Ben McKee a couple minutes ago about this basketball team right now and what we did or didn't learn about them on Saturday. But specifically, I think Tennessee fans were up in arms on Friday when they saw their big-time new prospect on the baseball field not be eligible. Some added insight there from Ben that Tennessee self-reported a violation a few months ago involving a plane that brought Maui Ahuna to campus that they now have to get cleared up with the NCAA, which is why there's a holdup. And they expected that to be taken care of a few weeks ago, and it has not been taken care of quite yet.
As competitive as they make recruiting and how strict the rules are, and I know rules in place so that people don't get out of hand, but like there's a lot that goes on, Will, that you got to try to get ahead of in all of recruiting. Like it went from, hey, it's the dead period to when social media get involved with it, you can contact kids probably over Twitter or Facebook or, some other type of social media. Like there's always an edge to it. And the NCAA sometimes I feel like it's a step or two behind where coaches try to make stuff work for their teams. Like flying out a kid a day or two early, that to me is more or less a breakdown of communication between rules, the involving parties being UT, Kansas, and the prospect. And how is that always the case? You know what I'm saying? Well, like there has to be a better method in which you can go about regulating guidance and just understanding of recruiting, especially as chaotic as the transfer portal is these days. If Tennessee did it, self-reported, get it figured out. Why is there a hang-up again on the figuring out of what's what moving forward?
So it's a big mistake by Tennessee.
A flight?
I mean, you've now put it in the NCAA's hands to render the guy ineligible.
Yeah, that's tough.
Like
though,
you can't. I'm not saying you are, but you can't come with the same energy at the NCAA of like, oh, it's always Tennessee. Like I saw a lot of fans making this statement.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like Uroš Plavšić, Cade Mays had to wait a game before he was eligible. You had Aubrey Solomon wasn't eligible right away. Why is it always? I don't think it's a Tennessee thing.
Yeah, this time it's just you did something and you're wrong for it.
Made a mistake.
I'm okay with that, but again, the way coaches have the freedom to move around, and I know they're not prospects, but they're paid off the prospects' backs. You know what I'm saying? All sports will, even non-revenue generating sports, they gain something from it. They make it harder on the worker than it is the actual people. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's an issue. Whether Tennessee did something wrong here, okay, it's wrong. Good. Paperwork, we got to figure it out. You good? We're good? Yes. End it.
Right.
And maybe that's just my train of thought because I've seen them kind of screw guys over a little bit more like that. Paperwork. Can you imagine also being able to drive somebody that car on campus and it's an issue because they let you borrow it? Like, those are the types of things that went on before it became a little bit more loose with stuff. Like, it's a nice car, but it's a family member's car. Well, you got to come fill out paperwork for this. Like, that bothers me a little bit.
The amount of paperwork that it takes to just play an NCAA sport.
Oh, my God.
I don't think people even understand. Like, how you go through an entire day where you just sign stuff.
And I say
the first day you get on campus.
It's not just a Tennessee thing. It's all of college sports. And you're right.
And it's every sport. And it's Division II. It's Division III. I mean, like, we had to fill out forms of, like, has any Tennessee booster given you a card? It's like, no. Like, I'm a distance runner. It's not that deep. It's really not that deep, I promise you.
No, baby.
And am I going to tell you too? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
That just complicates it even more.
Right.
The level of truth-telling to the NCAA, they make it that much worse, man. And it is what it is. But, geez, that sucks, though, because we need runs, and they're not the same group from last year.
See, the funny thing is when you're in a sport like me and there's like no fanfare around it, I was like excited to fill out NCAA paperwork. I was like, man, this is awesome.
Really?
I'm official now. This is great.
Clearinghouse and everything.
Oh, yeah. Like, you like make that little portal on the inside. Like I remember junior in high school when I was starting to get recruited, I made like the NCAA clearinghouse like profile, and I was like, oh, man, this is legit. Wasn't at all.
Wasn't legit.
Wasn't at all.
Oh,
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Coming up next, the NCAA Men's Basketball Selection Committee sends out its first preview of the top 4 seeds in each region, where Tennessee ranked, and the team that has never been a number 1 overall seed that clocks in at number 1 over the weekend. That's coming up. Josh Heupel at 8:15. Much more on the way at halftime of Ramon, Kayla, and Will. 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. I am joined by our good friend Dean Glasscock of Arbor Art Tree and Shrub, your expert in trees and shrubs right here in Middle Tennessee. Dean, you all offer some incredible services there, including your plant healthcare system. But how about you tell us about tree planting?
That's right. 29 years in business. One of the things we're really proud of is if we go out and remove trees, whether they're small or mature trees, whatever, on your property, we also really encourage everyone to replant. And we call it the Relief Program. And, it's a great thing. We have a beautiful canopy, and we're trying to preserve that here in our community, in the Nashville-Davidson County area especially. When we plant trees, we plant them right. We make sure that they are in the ground properly and the soil's ready. We put a warranty out with every tree we plant for a full year. So if you're looking to do some tree planting, please give us a call, 615-299-9999. We'll send Matthew out there. He's a certified arborist, and he runs our plant health care division. And also, don't forget, we've got firewood. If you've got camp wood you need or things that comes up as it gets warm, we've got that as well. So give us a call, 615-299-9999. One more thing, a big shout out to Mackenzie. She just got her arborist certification, so we now have 3 certified arborists on staff. We're really proud of all of our people here in the office and the crew as well. So thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Congrats, Mackenzie, and they are the expert. You heard Dean. Arbor Art Tree and Shrub. Check them out online at arborart.net or just call them at 615-299-9999. Again, it's Arbor Art Tree and Shrub.
8 o'clock, good morning. I'm Jonathan Schaefer from the Superbook.com sports desk. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won the Daytona 500. He won the race in double overtime and under caution. Those two overtimes pushed the race to a record 212 laps for a total of 530 miles. The Wild defeated the Predators 4-3 Sunday in Minnesota. The Preds split their games over the weekend, defeating Florida 7-3 on Saturday. To the NBA, Team Giannis defeated Team LeBron 184-175. Jason Tatum scored an all-star game record 55 points and won the game MVP. Women's hoops yesterday, Lady Vols, Vanderbilt, MTSU, Belmont, all winners. On the men's side, Drake defeated Belmont 70-56. College baseball started over the weekend. Vanderbilt routed Texas 12-2 to take 2 of 3 over the weekend at the College Baseball Showdown in Arlington, Texas. Meanwhile, the Vols took down UC San Diego 7-0 yesterday, getting their first win of the season after dropping their first 2 games. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Into the second half of the show on the Monday morning edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors, with 11-year NFL veteran and Vol for life, Ramon Foster.
Yeah.
The best producer in the world, Jonathan Schaefer behind the glass.
The best producer in the world!
And a very well-deserved day off for Kayla Anderson. I'm Will Bowling. Monday, February the 20th, and the head coach of the Tennessee football Vols coming up in 15 minutes. Josh Heupel, live on the show, coming up here in a few.
It'll be pretty good to have a conversation with him today, man. Off-season spring practice right around the corner. This is always exciting for coaches because they go from their break to actually seeing guys in the building working out, watching guys kind of transform a little bit from like puny arms to like, oh, you've been working, huh, son? It's like, yeah, coach, I've been doing a little bit, man. Yeah, I've been lifting.
The thing that I want to talk to Coach Heupel about that I think is an interesting discussion as far as recruiting goes. When Josh Heupel got the job at Tennessee, he specifically talked about how in-state it was harder to recruit because the in-state kids were hearing more than the out-of-state kids about the NCAA issues. And they were seeing the losses up close and personal, and they were more familiar with the struggles of that program going 3-7 in 2020, more so than a kid in California or a Nico Iamaleava would have been, who's being introduced to Tennessee for the first time by talking to Josh Heupel. Now you got the opposite going on. With the amount of success that this team had in 2022, you should be able to get that in-state kid, that mid-state guy. It should be easier to get that guy to recruit here, to commit to Tennessee, because they're going to be more familiar with the success that you had this past season. And they probably watched as you beat Alabama and stormed the field and did all of those things. Yeah,
and this is the thing, too. The talent pool has moved up a lot here in Tennessee, and just the recognition of it. Heck, I'm looking at the men's baseball team, Vols baseball team. I mean, good bit of those dudes are from the state of Tennessee. Vanderbilt's recruits here well, too, when it comes down to talent in this state for a lot of different reasons. Like, you have to be able, when you have good pockets of recruiting, be able to have those in-state guys, because who's going to sell it better than them? They grew up around it. That was my biggest thing, Will. I never forget when I got introduced to it in middle school. Like, I watched football, but I wasn't like, I didn't dive all the way in like that because we didn't really have a whole lot of cable and. But when I got to the point of understanding what football was, it was, to your point, people around me understanding the Vols and how good they were and always hearing the conversation. When I got that offer, man, it meant a lot to be from this state.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things like we heard Ben McKee speak about Chris Lofton. Like, no matter where you go, you want to at least be respected enough to get that offer from your in-state team. At least one of them. I don't care if it was Kentucky or Louisville for him. For me, it was Memphis, UT, like TSU was in that conversation, like UT, like all of those teams. Like I wanted to make sure that I got those in-state offers. The Vandy one, did I get an offer from Vandy? Maybe I got conversation. My grade is probably one of those great things because I thought I was a hot shot jock at that point. But that's neither here nor there.
I wonder if I can look up your 247 sports profile and see if you got an offer from Vandy.
I'm not sure if it was Vandy. I know I may have had conversation with him, but I'm not sure if it was an official offer.
It's got your Steelers stuff in here.
It does it? Yeah, I think they update it post-college sometimes.
Do you know what your 247 sports ranking was when coming out of high school?
I was probably the 41st tackle coming out, I think.
34.
34 tackle. Oh, wow.
Jonathan Schaefer, what number in the country was Ramon Foster ranked, do you think? Setting you up for
248th.
No.
Ramon Foster, what do you think you were ranked?
My overall ranking, let's go 421.
Close.
Where am I at?
We're sitting here with the number 474 player in the class of 2004.
I really thought I was, wow.
No, I know I was a 3-star.
Dang.
Committed on November 4th, 2003.
I don't know what those things mean ultimately.
Yeah, I committed then.
You were the number 7 player in Tennessee.
Yep. Should have been higher.
Classic.
Should have been.
Such an athlete.
Hear me out. Go ahead, tell the group in front of me. Do you have that list?
I'm looking for it, and then it says no results found.
I think
I'm serious.
DeMonte Bolden, if I'm not mistaken, was the number 1 guy.
No results for the 2004 recruiting
And that class should have been higher. I will say that. And I made it my point, too, Will, to make sure I knocked off as many guys as I could when it came down to it.
It's weird because on your profile it says you're the number 7 player in the state, but it doesn't tell you who is in front of you. Anyway.
Trust me, I got it somewhere.
You got the receipts?
Yeah, I kept the receipts, baby. Always keep receipts.
Yeah, they're called NFL game checks.
That's neither here nor there.
Must be nice.
Yes, it is. Of course it is.
That's
how you beat them.
Now they had my homeboy from what's the name? He was a fullback. I remember Brentwood Academy guy, David Holbert. He was a fullback.
Big time.
He was rated higher than
Loved
I
watching
was.
him play growing up.
I'm like, a fullback? Stop.
Between him and Bartholomew, there were some good fullbacks in that division growing up.
It was. Let me stop crapping
all the
on
Bartholomews at NBA.
But I was planning on knocking them off one by one, Will.
The committee update, bracketology update we'll give you before we get to break and get to Josh Heupel on the other side. Alabama, number 1 overall in the first NCAA tournament official committee update. Tennessee, a 3 seed. Texas, Arizona, Baylor, and UCLA, the 2 seeds. Tennessee has wins over 2 of the 1 seeds, Kansas and Alabama. And then 1 of the 2 seeds in Texas. It's not bad.
That's not bad. You gotta stop.
Makes it all the more frustrating.
I know.
Interesting thing, though, to make Tennessee fans feel a little bit better right now. Of those 3 seeds, Iowa State is one of them. They're 4-6 in their last 10. Kansas State has lost 5 of its last 7. And Tennessee has lost 4 of its last 6. Those are 3 of the 4 3 seeds of the NCAA tournament right now if it started tomorrow. Damn! So your issues are not happening alone. That's for sure. Coming up next, Josh Heupel, head coach of the Tennessee Football Volunteers, will join us. We'll cover a lot of topics with him as far as his new quarterback in Joe Milton and see if we can get his scouting report of the guy we met down in Mobile a couple weeks ago in Hendon Hooker. And what makes that guy such an attractive NFL prospect. The head coach of the Tennessee Football Vols. Coming up next, Josh Heupel on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
Spring will be here before you know it. Hey, it's Schaefer. Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply is ready with all the fertilizers, seeds, pre-emergents, and herbicides needed to get your property ready for the year. They offer professional advice and know how to DIY your lawn and landscape care. Whether you're trimming bushes, cutting grass, or just trying to keep weeds and insects out of your lawn and landscape, they've got it all. Dickens Turf and Landscape Supply, also your source for Kawasaki Parts and Service. With Kawasaki engine parts, lubricants, and service, and certified Kawasaki techs at each location, get your lawn equipment serviced or repaired with Kawasaki. Beat the spring service rush. Get your equipment taken care of now, courtesy of Diggins Turf and Landscape Supply. Here's your Middle Tennessee locations: Nashville, Cool Springs, Bellevue, Murfreesboro, Brentwood Mower, Hendersonville, Mount Juliet, and Franklin. If you can't stop by one of their locations, check them out online, DickinsSupply.com.
Monday morning edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will is powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors right here on 104.5 The Zone. Alongside 11-year NFL veteran and Vol for Life, Ramon Foster. I'm Will Bowling. As we go to the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline, and we are joined this morning by the head coach of the Tennessee Football Volunteers, Coach Josh Heupel, giving us a couple of minutes today. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good morning. Doing great. You guys got the right music playing this morning, I can see.
We knew, Coach. We knew. Somehow we knew.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to be hearing that a lot in Nashville coming up these next couple of months between SEC Media Days, first game of the year here in Nissan Stadium. How excited are you guys to spend a lot of time with us here in the Mid-State?
So excited. It's a huge part. I was actually there this past Friday, speaking with a bunch of coaches from around the state at their high school clinic. From the time that we've gotten here, 2 years ago, it's been important to me and to our program. We've tried to be extremely intentional and spending a lot of time in the Mid-State. We got to own that area, and you can tell from the administration side of it that they want to be intentional too with us having an opportunity to open our season next year in front of a lot of our great fans there in the Mid-State, and obviously SEC Media Days, really important for us to be there and get a chance to be around a lot of our fans.
And it's so interesting, Coach, talking to a lot of high school coaches in football in this area, just how many of these teams are running your guys' offense and want to look like the offense of the Tennessee Volunteers. And I'm just curious how big of an emphasis that's been for you and your staff to create relationships with a lot of these head coaches where you can now look at 2-3 years down the road and feel like you've really embedded yourself in these communities.
Yeah, recruiting is relationships. It's time spent. It's being transparent in the communication process, making sure that we do a great job of evaluating and having lines of communication with the high school coaches, in the state. And we've done that here over the last couple of years. I think we're going to continue to increase our effectiveness of recruiting inside of our borders here. But those relationships are extremely important, and we've spent time and energy each recruiting cycle. I've been intentional whenever I can get out on the road during December and January and during the fall, making sure that I'm hitting, the state as hard as I can. That pays dividends here in the first couple of recruiting cycles, but I really think that's going to continue to pay dividends as we go forward recruiting the state.
Coach, that's interesting. Before you came on, Will and I was having that conversation. I was like, how important it was for me to get that, that big school in-state offer. And I'm sure you kind of run into that a little bit now, especially since the talent growth has grown so much here in the state of Tennessee with as big, especially as this Nashville area has gone. Have you kind of gotten that response from families like, it's good that you guys are coming to the Middle Tennessee area, West Tennessee, and, of course, locking up East Tennessee too?
Man, we've gotten such a great welcome throughout the state, but in particular in the mid part of the state here. The brand, the logo, obviously is recognized across the country, but I think it is something special here inside of this border, and the reception we've gotten from coaches, from our VFLs that are still living in the state, from our fans has been fantastic. And we started creating that positive momentum and energy here on campus, but throughout Vol Nation, and that pays dividends in recruiting. And I think when you look at last year's cycle and how we closed it out inside of the state, winning some big time battles, it speaks to the energy that we've created.
Speaking of big time battles, man, one group to me, of course, OL, the growth that they had last year. Just speak about how big it was for them last year. Seeing Darnell right now be one of those top tackles in the draft, even, within the offensive confines that you guys had last year. And on top of that, what is going to take for this group at springtime is that time of the year where guys start to separate themselves from, look, am I going to be a starter or, am I going to contribute in some type of capacity?
Yeah, really proud of the growth of the offensive line unit over our first couple of years, last year in particular. You look at the development of those guys, fundamentally, their understanding of football. It's a huge tip of the hat to Coach Ellerby and our offensive line coaches that do a great job of developing those guys. You can tell that they played as one unit. That unit's different. They all got to be bought in it together. They got to enjoy each other. They got to communicate at a really high level. You got to build that inside of that meeting room every single day, and really proud of the jump that we made. There's a lot more jumps for us to take at that position as a unit to become, the best in the country. You look at the development, Cade Mays last year, Darnell in this year's draft class, his potential to continue to move up the board. I think it speaks to what we're doing, like I said, in the meeting room, but I also think it speaks to Kurt Schmidt and our strength and conditioning staff, the physical development of those guys, position specific, and what those guys have done as they've moved through our program. And really excited about spring ball. It's an area where we got to replace a couple of guys. Jerome Carvin, somebody that maybe started as many or more games than anybody at the offensive line position in the history of our program. That creates opportunity. That's the great thing. The tough thing about college football is 25% of your roster is changing over every year. So you got to develop those guys. We got some young guys that got to step up. I love what we're doing in our off season right now, but can't wait to get out on the grass with our guys here at the end of March.
Josh Heupel, our guest this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Coach, when you look at the relationship between Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker, how unique is that guy in Joe to have that close of a relationship with the starting quarterback? Just how unique was that entire dynamic between those two this past year?
Yeah, you don't find that in college football anymore. I think it speaks to who those two guys are, that they love and care about their teammates as much or more than they care about their individual success. It speaks to their ability to want to continue to develop. I think it speaks to the culture inside of that room, with Coach Halsey, myself being in there, and our young coaches, doing a great job of building those guys fundamentally. They can see themselves improving. They can understand, maybe what their deficiencies are, but also understanding that they're getting better at those things. And what we do offensively, have a chance to, when it's their time, to go play at an elite level and put themselves in position to accomplish their goals here in college, but also long-term too. And speaks to the culture inside of the building, that we're continuing to help support each other while we're competing really hard with one another.
And do you feel like you've kind of got another coach in that quarterback room now with Joe, and just the amount of football he's played and being able to watch Hendon in that role this past year? And how does that help a guy like a Nico Iamaleava learning the system with a guy in Joe that's been there and kind of done that with you guys?
Well, I think it's important that we continue as new guys come into that position room, that they, buy into and understand the culture of what we want to have in that room. Joe has done a great job with Nico of helping him get his feet on the ground, grow as a player. Some of that, this is how you handle things on the field, but a lot of it's just, how you continue to be a pro inside the building and push to be your best, the time and energy and effort you got to put into it. Nico's got a ton of growth. We're really excited about him and what he's done so far here on campus. Probably about 13 bowl practices that he's got underneath his belt. But Joe's got a whole nother level of growth that he's got left in him too, and really excited about what he's done so far this off season. But also, what's going to happen here through spring ball as he continues to push to become his best.
Coach, in today's football with transfers and just freshmen coming in middle of the year, how have you guys been able to kind of bring that group together as quick as you have as of late? Because last year was phenomenal to watch, guys just come in and play their role and make plays for you in different type of ways, like Jalen breakout season, just in general. So how are you guys been able to pull that all together?
Yeah, I think I try to be really intentional in spending time with them, help them transition. That's freshmen and transfers, new guys to the program. We got a culture where, we talk about being a great teammate, which is helping support the guys around you and demanding certain things from them too, but helping show them the way of what it means to be a Tennessee Vol. And so our guys that have been in the program, our leadership council, have done a really good job with those new guys and welcoming them in, knowing that at times you're going to end up competing with some of these guys for snaps, but the overall culture of it is really unique here. And then, this time of year before we get into spring ball, every Wednesday for us is leadership and communication skill development. And So being intentional on some of the things that we want to make sure we get a chance to speak to our culture, celebrate the culture, and continue to help these guys transition into being a Tennessee football player.
And on the coaching side of it, one thing that's for certain, too, is when you're good, your staff or, coaches are going to get poached. And that happened this offseason for good reasons. How are you able to develop coaches also within your system? Because it's unique and I'm sure it's very complex on how you go about calling plays, setting up stuff situationally, and being able to promote within. How important is that?
Yeah, I think, what we do offensively, how we approach, how we think about the game is certainly different than most people inside of college football. And in that, when you are able to develop really smart, great teachers that care about, the young people inside of our program and want to help develop a man but can teach at an elite level, then you are able to promote from within and know that you got the right guy. I'm always going to go through a process of interviewing people, but making sure that we have the right guy. Really excited about Alec Ablin here, being able to promote him to the tight end position. He's done a fantastic job with our guys in a really short amount of time. The tight ends inside of that room have grown fundamentally in understanding the game of football. They're really excited about what's going on and being in that room with Coach Aids. So really excited about, who we have inside of our building. Guys are going to get jobs from Tennessee. You want it to happen the way that it's happened. Cody Burns has an opportunity to fulfill a lifelong dream of being an NFL coach, gets a wide receiver job. Alex Golesh is, fortunate enough to get a head coaching job. You want that, in this profession, you want people on your staff to continue to grow and have an opportunity to move up the ladder. I think it speaks to the success of what we're doing inside of this program, that guys are getting those opportunities.
Josh Heupel, our guest this morning on 104.5 The Zone, talking about some of the recruiting pitches you guys have been able to make. I've got to imagine being able to pitch that you can practice a little bit and go to a bowl game like the Orange Bowl just a couple weeks on campus has got to be pretty nice. How beneficial was that for you guys to get that early evaluation period of a lot of your early enrollees?
Yeah, it's a jump start for them on the college experience. They transition into our program. They get a chance to see what the football side of it looks like, from meetings to practices. They get an opportunity to be in one of the biggest and best games in college football year in and year out when they go to a game like we did this past year. I think that's a really valuable experience. As much as anything, I think it creates a real urgency in understanding the complexity of the game, the speed of the game, and getting themselves prepared when they come back to campus at the end of January. We start our winter semester. Those guys being really intentional and hyper-focused on preparing themselves so that they can go out and compete the right way when we get to spring ball. Our young guys inside of our program, 18 freshmen, I think, close to 26 guys. When you count transfer portal guys that are new to our roster, the maturity that they've had, the focus that they've shown, and the willingness to compete every single day when they step inside of the building, really mature group of individuals, and really excited to get on the field with them.
So, Coach, we had Josh Dobbs on our show last Wednesday, the morning of Tennessee's win over Alabama on the hardwood. Good to see Tennessee get the full sweep on both of those. But I know you got the chance to catch up with Dobbs while he was at Knoxville for the game. You guys talk about how many touchdowns that guy would have scored in your offense had he been able to play for you?
I did get a chance. I was sitting next to him and his dad courtside there. His dad definitely was saying, man, I wish he had gotten an opportunity to play in what we're doing offensively. Josh is a dynamic player. It's been fun to watch his NFL career unfold, and thought he played really well last year when he got an opportunity there with the Titans, and excited to see his future successes wherever that is. But what a great ambassador for Tennessee, the university, our football program. Really proud to have him be a VFL and represent us a great way, and really appreciate the way that he comes back and is intentional with our current players of creating a real bond with them and helping us grow as a program.
Speaking of basketball, Coach, I saw you at the game. And then Coach Barnes had a story about you during the Alabama week, just needing to get in the gym with your kid. I have to ask you, Coach, because most football players feel this way anyway. Was basketball your first love? Because you seem to be having a real interest in it, and I thought I was going to be the next Shaq because I grew to be like 6'4" in the 8th grade, but that's neither here nor there, though.
Hey, basketball was definitely my first love, and then I realized I was 6'2", that my future in that probably wasn't on the hardwood. I still do love getting out and playing. We'll play a little noon ball with the young coaches when our assistants are out on the road during spring recruiting, and love getting a chance to go shoot and help my little guy out on the court as well.
Well, because we always like to show off in the offseason anyway. I remember being in that indoor at TBA, and guys would just go get a quick pickup game going on, and I saw some football players jump from right within the free throw line. Have you seen anybody do something that dynamic to be like, you know what, you could play for Coach Barnes, but I need you more on the football field?
Well, first of all, I don't want our guys playing any pickup basketball.
It was a different era back then, Coach.
All right, but I also understand the lay of the land. We do have some guys that are really talented on the basketball court. Absolutely. There's guys that can shoot it. They can throw it up and go play high on the glass too. But a bunch of guys that are really talented. That is a hot topic of debate inside of our building for sure. Best basketball player in the program.
It's either that or whose high school football team would have beat who.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. State by state, there is no doubt. There's a lot of state pride when you get to that argument.
Coach Josh Heupel with us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Coach, just on the way out, we really enjoyed getting the chance to catch up with Hendon Hooker down in the Senior Bowl a couple of weeks ago. We're just really impressed to hear a lot of the reviews from NFL people and getting to sit down with him and just seeing how engaged he was in practice, not able to take part physically, but just how engaged he was in every part of the practice process. Just where do you feel like he's made the biggest strides to make himself such an attractive candidate and prospect for NFL teams?
That is who he is. That energy, that in being intentional during the course of practice, being hyper-focused, like that's who he is inside of our building every day. You guys, our fans have heard me say that a lot about him. It's great that our NFL, the NFL had an opportunity to see it firsthand. They're out at our practices too, but it's different when you're there for an entire practice every single period. And for him, I think it's his football IQ, it's his fundamentals, it's his ability to create and make plays, it's his accuracy with the football down the field. Hendo's going to have a great NFL career. I hate that he's not 100% as he goes through this process, because I think he would have only continued to climb up draft boards as he showcased some of those physical things. But there's no doubt that, wherever he gets picked, he's going to have a ton of success.
Mm-hmm. Coach Josh Heupel has been our guest this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Coach, looking forward to having you guys in the Mid-State quite a bit these next couple of months. Absolutely. And looking forward to catch up this summer at SEC Media Days.
Hey, I appreciate it. And to all the Vol fans out there in the Mid-State, appreciate your support. And have a great morning. Go Big Orange.
Love it.
Thanks,
there he
Coach.
is. Coach Josh Heupel with us for a couple minutes this morning on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. And good to catch up with Coach. Enjoying the offseason.
Really good, man. Offseason has really started for those guys, as you heard a second ago, man. It's kind of cool to watch this next phase. Like last year was a great starting point for this team, and having the ability to build off of it and hearing him speak about like the environment that they have inside of that building. That's something that hasn't been there for a long time of this magnitude, Will. So I feel like we got the right guy.
I think so, and I think you've got a guy who understands the next step this program now has to take.
Mm-hmm.
And the recruiting advantages that you now have, and we've talked about it a lot, that you don't see the fruits of a 10-2 season until the class that are currently juniors are starting to watch a little bit more intently. This team's going to have to take that next step recruiting this 2024 class.
Yep.
And I think he understands that and understands that as good as this class is in the state of Tennessee, you talk about the commit they got from Cleveland, Tennessee, a top 5 player in the state over the weekend, who's a corner, which is always a good thing.
Always need that.
And then you talk about Boo Carter out of Chattanooga, a highly ranked prospect. You look a year down the road, you've got a top 10 quarterback in the country and George McIntyre at Brentwood Academy. I mean,
Lipscomb's got an interior guard over there that you love to have. His recruiting's going to be hot.
I mean, half of Lipscomb Academy's team at this point, and head coach Kevin Mawai now is being heavily recruited by Tennessee. So I think he understands that getting that kind of guy out of the state now has to be a priority. It has to be number one priority.
It has to be moving forward, Will. And that's the thing, though, too, is I know a lot of people have been of the mindset, Nashville's growing too big, but this is also what happens, too, when you get a lot of growth. The amount of athletes that start to come out of your state become a big factor, too. And, I mean, the more people, as far as being on the sports level, the higher concentration you can have of athletes, too. I think that's one of the things that kind of gets Texas. You look on, the Texas recruiting, the state of Texas, you almost have like 30, 40 4-stars, if not more, coming out of that state. Of course, they're big, they're populated. Football and sports are a huge aspect of what they do and believe in. And trust me, as a dad that's in it, Will, I see the amount of talent that's around, and not just football, but baseball, basketball, soccer even. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. It's heavy here, especially in the mid-state as of late.
Well, in the next couple season openers for Tennessee are in 3 different places. Between Nashville this upcoming year against UVA.
Yep.
You've got NC State and Charlotte coming up. I believe that one's in 2024.
Recruiting bid, too.
Big time.
Yep.
Because when Tennessee is right through its entire history in football,
what's the common denominator?
It's winning in the Carolinas in recruiting. Georgia is one thing. When Tennessee was dominant in the 90s, they were getting whoever they wanted out of North and South Carolina.
Just
they were
everybody.
Getting pretty much anybody they wanted out of Georgia.
And everybody does that to Georgia.
Right. And Georgia has enough prospects, right, where you can get, the second tier guy out of Georgia is the first tier guy in about 45 other states. In North and South Carolina, David Hobbs, Tennessee's 5-star defensive lineman in this class, out of North Carolina. Hendon Hooker, North Carolina guy. And that was a relationship going back with Jay Graham in the state of North Carolina. Jalen Hyatt from South Carolina. I mean, you talk about a lot of those guys coming from that area of the country. So you got NC State in 2024, and then you've also got you're in Atlanta, I believe, in 2025.
Yeah.
For
Big
one
time.
then. So it like it or not, always be recruiting and find ways to play games in those battleground cities for sure. Important, and that's exactly what the Vols will do coming up Labor Day weekend here in Nashville.
I'm thinking of the guys that I played with just from the Carolinas, just in general. Like, it was Atlanta, the Carolinas, and Virginia area.
Right.
Those were the hotbeds of, like, going in and getting those recruits. And that's one thing I also loved about Tennessee. They did a really good job of getting the in-state guys when Foreman was there, right? And then you also attack Georgia, North and South Carolina, and the Virginia areas.
Right.
Those where you flourish. And you'd always have the sprinkle of a Cali kid here or there. Hawaii also been the case. And you go as much as you could into Louisiana and Texas.
Right.
But, of course, Texas has always had theirs on lock, and also Louisiana has too with LSU.
Coach Fulmer built that thing on a lot of mean, corn-fed dudes from rural Tennessee.
Whoo! Talk about it.
Including the one sitting next to me.
Yeah.
Maybe not me.
Chad Clifton's another guy. Al Wilson's out of that area.
Fulmer was one of those guys.
Hey, Fulmer. I mean, come on, man. There's a lot of talent that comes out of there. Shout out to knowing how to recruit, because some coaches didn't know how to do that.
Well, coming up next, you're not wrong. Coming up next, want to highlight what Josh Heupel said with us about the quarterback position. And I feel like specifically they've got another QB coach in Joe Milton.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the unique nature of what Tennessee does on offense makes this element of the process for Nico Iamaleava even more important. We'll dive into that comment from Josh Heupel coming up next on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone. Monday morning edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will is powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. Special thanks to the head coach of the Tennessee Football Volunteers, Josh Heupel, giving us a couple minutes this morning. Great conversation with him. If you missed it, you can check that out either on the replay on 104.5 The Zone TV. You can go back and watch that right now on our YouTube channel. Just search for 104.5 The Zone. Hit the subscribe button while you're there, too.
Why are you there, man?
Just go ahead and do that for us. And available on all podcast platforms as well at 10 o'clock this morning, right at the end of the show. One answer, Ramon, I thought was particularly interesting was when he was asked about Joe Milton and just the relationship Joe has with the rest of the guys in that room. He basically volunteered the information that he has already started to mentor Nico Iamaleava on the field, but also off it, and just understanding how to play quarterback in the SEC. And I think that's specifically the value you get as you still have COVID seniors in a lot of locker rooms around college football. Mm-hmm. You're still benefiting from that for years to come because those guys are extra GAs you have in the building just doing the thing that you want the backups to start doing.
They are, man. And it's good, too, to have a selfless guy like Joe. Like, this is the thing. Everybody wants to be the guy. Right. Well, like legitimately, when you walk on campus, I don't care if you're 1-star or 5-star, you have those ambitions to be the man. And to see Joe kind of morph into a team first guy is going to benefit him way more in life, whether that be on the next level, being a teammate to somebody, but also being able to sit back and watch. Hendon have success when he was named the day one starter and not have any ego about it. But then right behind you will have this 5-star guy that if you have a bad day at the office, he could come in and make plays for you too as far as Nico goes. When we were good at Tennessee or at least competing, man, this was the thing. The older guys always helped out. The older guys were quick to, put a young guy in his place. Right. The older guys, offense and defense, man, and y'all know this too. It hurt me so much when a guy like Paris Harrelson passed away because Paris was a defensive end that I go against on scout team as a young guy that would teach me things to help me in practice. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's what you need out of a team, especially when you're young and so full of yourself with your ego and just trying to stake your claim because the next year a recruiting class is coming behind you to try to compete with you too. And to have a guy like Joe Milton be that guy that everybody knows is the quarterback. He is the captain of the University of Tennessee right now in all facets as far as football goes. And to have him be your spokesperson to being a great teammate is a lot.
So here's what I think about this, because I think specifically Nico getting the opportunity to have 13 extra practices.
Yeah.
And having Joe Milton in that locker room is more critical for Tennessee than a lot of other places just because of the nature of the offense they run.
Yeah.
The operation, Mike Vrabel uses that word a lot, of operation. Your pre-snap reads, your communication with the rest of the offense, your communication with the offensive line, picking up blitzes, understanding where cornerbacks are playing and the leverages in the secondary against your wide receivers. Tennessee's quarterbacks have to make those reads and make those decisions faster than any other team in college football.
Yep.
It's just the nature of this offense. So I think having that extra time, if you're Nico, having a grad assistant quarterback, basically, and Joe Milton in the room, I think speeds up that process a bit. And I think non-Tennessee fans will make the joke of like, oh, are you really sure you want Joe Milton and his overthrows teaching Nico what to do? That's not what I'm saying. I mean specifically the reads and the checks and the operation of running a Tennessee warp speed offense, I think becomes easier for a guy who gets more time in that system, but also gets more time with a guy that's been in the system for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, the best part you can have about a guy, especially quarterbacks, is where and how they learn. Most of the times you learn better, Will, from your peers. When another teammate was talking to me about something, I'm going to pick it up quicker, and that's what he has the luxury of right now. Now, truthfully, he's got to get his reps. His reps have to count in practice, and he's probably not going to have more reps than Joe Milton will. Right. But the ability to talk up processes, hey, you should have went here. They were there a second earlier. Deliver the ball. That's one thing we've always heard about guys transition from college to the NFL is the windows. Like his high school window will not be the same, Will, as you said just a second ago, because of the way this offense is ran, from day one when you get in there. So Joe is huge to that team, especially the offense, but also the curation of Nico Iamaleava, too, as I got that right on the first way. Pat myself on the back.
Ramon's a broadcast guru. Radio professional, Ramon Foster.
It depends on who we're talking to about that one.
615-737-1045 our number. We've still got Teresa Walker coming up in hour 4 as we'll get her reaction to some of the things Josh Heupel had to say and get her thoughts on a number of topics around college basketball in the SEC. But good to have Coach on. I'll tell you what, I think that guy really understands the energy in this part of the fan base right now.
No, for sure.
Because you can feel it around this area of the state.
Yeah, I didn't want to drop the name, but the way they closed out when Bama was on the heels of Arian Carter. Like, Will.
Kid from Smyrna.
A coach ago, we weren't going to get Arian Carter.
Arian Carter, who I believe was in on Alabama was in on him before Tennessee was.
Bama was. And Saban came to the school. If the rumors are correct, he came to the school and or it was an assistant that came up to the school and he pretty much told him, like, nah, I'm good.
Pete Golding.
Yeah.
Who's now at Ole Miss.
It's like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to UT.
Yeah, that's
like,
that's the story, is that Alabama had their defensive coordinator at the high school on the day they knew Arian Carter was signing with Tennessee for one last pitch, and he said, "Nah, we're all right.
Yeah,
we've got our decision made."
And mind you, Tennessee and Bama was late, but Bama's the show when it comes down to, hey, come here.
Bama's offer was what started a lot of the chain reaction with that kid, who was a Memphis commit at the time.
This is your opportunity to go ahead and drop one on Memphis right now.
Well, as usual. As usual, the middle and the east sides of the state have a little bit of a leg up on the other end, respectfully to you. Ripley, Tennessee. Ripley and I are cool.
We got to get somebody else coming out of Ripley, man. We do.
Look, Ron Slay will say it too. If you give Ron Slay the platform to say Nashville greater than Memphis, he'll take the opportunity and he'll run with it.
Although he was born a West Tennessee
That's what
kid,
I'm saying.
too. I know.
Slay knows. Look, if you're on Ron Slay's side, you're on the right side of history in all facets of the world.
Yeah, you are.
In all facets of the world. Coming up next, hour 4 begins this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will as we continue the discussion with Teresa Walker coming up at 9:20 and one Nashvilleian who might be back into NFL coaching. Coming up this upcoming season. That's next on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
It's Ramon Foster for Window Nation, and Window Nation has the coolest deal ever for keeping you warm. Pay $0 down, make 0 payments, and get 0% financing for 24 months. That's 2 years, no interest. Plus, get 2 free windows with every 2 you buy with no limit. You need to take advantage of Window Nation's deep discounts, all while reinvesting in your biggest asset. Not to mention the energy savings for years to come. Simply call 866-90-NATION or go online at windownation.com. And if you didn't know why you needed Window Nation windows, 43% of your utility bill is heating costs. You can save up to 30% on your heating bills by getting Window Nation windows and increase the value of your home by up to $12,000. And if you need to know if you have, bad windows, well, if they're sticky, drafty, cracked, hard to open, or locking when they close, yes, you need new windows. So, again, you can call 866-90-NATION or go online at windownation.com and be sure to tell them that Ramon sent you.
9 o'clock. Good morning. I'm Jonathan Schaefer from the Superbook.com sports desk. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won the Daytona 500, won the race in double overtime and under caution.
It is NASCAR's decision as to where those two cars were when the button was pushed to activate the caution, and Ricky Stenhouse has won the Daytona 500.
Mike Joy on Fox Television. The two overtimes pushed the race to a record 212 laps, a dozen laps beyond the scheduled distance, and a total of 530 miles. The Minnesota Wild defeated the Nashville Predators 4-3 Sunday in Minnesota. The Preds split their games over the weekend, defeating Florida 7-3 on Saturday. Team Giannis defeated Team LeBron 184-175. Jason Tatum scored an All-Star game record 55 points and won the game MVP. Lady Vols defeated Auburn 83-76. Vanderbilt over Kentucky in women's hoops 79-57. MTSU ladies defeated FIU 85-46. Belmont women defeated Missouri State 68-58. Men's side yesterday, Drake a 70-56 win over Belmont. College baseball started over the weekend. Vanderbilt routed Texas 12-2 yesterday to take 2 of 3 over the weekend at the College Baseball Showdown in Arlington, Texas. And the Vols took UC San Diego to a 7-0 win for themselves, getting their first win of the season after dropping their first 2 games. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Four's up for the fourth quarter of the show. Monday morning live on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Powered, as always, by All Four Seasons Garage Doors with Ramon Foster, the best producer in the world, Jonathan Schaefer. And Kayla Anderson with another day of vacation this morning. I'm Will Bowling.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just let the introduction speak for itself.
Yes, William.
The scream at the end really makes that.
It does.
I don't want to talk over the scream at the end.
It makes it worth it.
And it makes it even better, even though it's not Robert Walsh, envisioning Robert Walsh just screaming for 10 seconds like that.
Imagine that, man. Oh, you got to love that.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that was really good.
Wait for it. Wait for it. It's fantastic. 615-737-1045, our number this morning. Former NFL head coach, current ESPN analyst Rex Ryan, interviewing for the defensive coordinator position with the Denver Broncos.
So is he putting his toes back into the water for coaching?
Oh, my goodness.
He said if the shoe fits, then he's going to take the job.
I mean, in Denver, trouble was afoot, so they figured that Rex Ryan would be the best person to fix it.
I mean, he's gotten the boot before.
I said it takes the perfect Cinderella slipper to get him the right job.
Shoe got to stop with all these jokes. This is unbelievable. If the shoe fits.
He might be listening to us. He stays right down the street.
He's a Nashville
Don't
guy.
care.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. We don't care.
For the
Quote the
pain
great
that he
Stephen
calls me on Sundays, yeah, you're going to get these jokes now that I got the upper hand.
I think it's violent.
Yeah.
He's a good coach.
He's a real good coach. I'm actually shocked he's been out this long, to be truthful with you.
Head coach of the Jets from 2009 to 2014. Led them to back-to-back AFC championship game appearances in 2009 and 2010. Before he was a head coach with the Baltimore Ravens for 10 seasons, including 4 as their defensive coordinator, in which that defense was in the top 10 every season.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Not bad at all. He knows ball, but it's a matter of, like you said, seriously, on the serious tip, how much of a perfect scenario it has to be for him to go work with Sean Payton what does that mean for him? You know what I'm saying? You know the offense should be there. And you got some good components of a secondary in Denver that you can really work with. Denver might actually turn it around if Sean Payton can get Russell Wilson out of his own way.
He stands on his credentials.
He's that's why we're still on the foot thing.
Gosh.
Hey, I'm here for it.
Well, Rex Ryan has said he would not leave ESPN unless it was the perfect situation.
Perfect fit.
So, the perfect fit.
What if he got orthotics for those feet that he's trying to put perfect foot in?
Yeah, I don't know. I try to think as little of that obsession that Rex Ryan has of the topic of discussion we're having as much as possible.
ESPN's trying to shoo him away.
Well, ultimately, ESPN will just be a footnote on his entire career. It'll be in the footer of his resume.
Oh, this is what we're doing today.
He just decided he wanted to kick it with Sean Payton again.
You know, never mind. I'm not going down this road.
Tennessee missed its last 8 free throws in Rupp Arena on Saturday. The Vols were 4 of 14. A lot of their shots were kicking off the iron and rimming out. They missed their final 8 attempts.
A victory was not a shoe-in.
All 6 in the second half.
Will I get the first kick eventually at Geodis Park?
All right, now I think we're done. I think we're done now. I think we've worn it out.
It is match week in Geodis Park this week. For Nashville.
Are you going to get first kick Saturday, or can you go?
Saturday. What do I have Saturday? Oh, I got baseball scrimmages Saturday.
This is the area of the calendar where every person with kids in this building is like, oh, yeah, I've got a baseball tournament this weekend.
I swear that you will. Every single one of them. Mayor, I'm sure, is in the same boat. I think Babsy and Baby Babs are doing softball, if I'm not mistaken, too. Yeah. Is that time? What are you doing, Moan, this weekend?
Baseball.
I
texted you Saturday night. Like, what are you up to? Baseball.
Oh, now tell the whole story. You ran across somebody.
Yeah. Ran across a friend of the show.
Jobs.
Okay. Yeah. I guess we're naming that name.
Yeah, absolutely. You ran across
He
Dobbs.
was going to make you name drop even if you didn't name drop.
Oh, you're definitely name dropping right now. I know,
I'm
but that's the reason I made you do it. You ran across Dobbs. He was like, where's Ramon?
Yeah.
What was my reply?
In his home state doing baseball.
In Josh's home state doing baseball.
Yeah, that's right. That was the full report.
Every weekend from here on out.
That's
baseball. Right. That's to put my foot in my mouth with that one, huh?
Yeah.
We're done.
Next right is
We're done.
Oh my goodness! If you don't understand the joke, do not look it up on a work.
You know
browser.
what though?
What?
Since you're an ex-athlete, you have athlete's foot.
All right, and scene.
I gotta take care of the feets, man. Hey, golly, I didn't realize what that was until you realize you end up having it. But my feet do not stink, though. Tell you that much.
Mine do.
No way.
Yeah.
You're too clean to have stinky feet.
It's like a runner thing.
It's a runner thing?
When I would run, like those running shoes would get disgusting, like really quickly.
How quick do runners go through shoes?
At UT, we would get them like once a quarter,
So
like every 3 months.
3 months.
Every 2-3 months we'd get. But the thing is, we would have flats, shoes, and spikes.
Jeez.
So spikes you race in, flats you do like speed stuff in, like workouts in, and then like the shoes you just do like most of your mileage in.
Okay, so in cross country running, like on grass, did you still wear spikes in, or did you wear shoes?
I did. More so in college, a lot more guys would wear flats.
Okay.
Because the terrain, like early in the season, first race of the year, we'd wear flats.
Okay.
Because you would be so sore from not being used to wearing spikes.
Gotcha.
That if you're running 8K, like you're running 5 miles on spikes, you're gonna feel a little bit more the next morning.
Oh yeah, I did that with my football cleats. Oh, it's
so we wear flats, and that's like the happy medium of the two.
Okay.
And flats are super light, but I preferred to wear track spikes. I never wore cross country spikes.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
Is it
track spikes are lighter? Cross country spikes have a little bit more support because you're going farther, and I wanted like as little weight as possible.
That was me. Yeah.
That was like our philosophy at the team in high school.
Okay. I got you for sure. That makes sense.
I was at my parents' house last night celebrating my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday, Mama Bowling.
That's right. It was Friday. And
you didn't even mention it on air, man. We could have gave that shout out. You charging your mom for a shout out on Friday?
I'm not charging anybody for a shout
out. You had a lot of stuff going on last week.
Did.
I know.
Your life just got so much better, but complicated.
That's right. That's right. But We were they were like trying to like clean out a lot of the house, like cleaning out like my room.
Yeah.
And I was looking through, and my dad had laid out all of the shoes that I had in my bedroom at home. And I think there were like 5 or 6 pairs of spikes. And I was going through and picking up each one of like, oh, remember the best, really what it was, knowing me. I was like, remember my worst race in these. I remember my worst race in these. I remember my worst race in these. And it was like, I had 4 pairs of the same running shoes lined up like side by side by side by side.
Yeah.
But you can't sell those.
Nope.
Because those are like, that's team gear. And then your that was before NIL. So like, I couldn't have like sold my old running shoes because then I would have been ineligible.
So did you end up as all this was laid out? Did you keep it? Have you tossed it out?
I didn't keep it in a single pair of them because they're all worn down.
Yeah.
Like, you can't. And I have no use for spikes anymore, obviously.
That to me is one of the most grown up things a person can do. And when they start getting rid of gear, like I got rid of a bunch of
it's sad.
Trophies and stuff. Yeah.
It's really sad. I kept a lot of the medals and trophies and stuff. I haven't gotten to that point yet. I probably will at some point.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find the spikes that we won state in my senior year.
Yeah.
Because I have like my jersey framed from that year and I want to keep the spikes with them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, it's like I'm very nostalgic. Like, I don't ever think of these things or see them. Yeah. But I'm like, oh, man.
But when you do see them, that's a conversation we need to have one day. It's like, when do you get rid of old trophies? Like, the one that I've kept is my Mr. Football. My most improved, I got MVP basically of the spring game. Not once, Will, but 2 times, at UT. And then I got of all the trophies I kept, I kept my first ever trophy that I got, and I kept like maybe 2 or 3 more that I probably should have got rid of too.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why am I keeping these? Like, I kept an 8th grade basketball tournament trophy that the team had that I had last, so I kept it. And I'm like, why do I have this? So I tossed away a bunch of memories, but who gonna hold them?
That's a question we should ask at some point this offseason is, what's the best self-memorabilia you have from your own athletic days that you'll always keep? Like the one trophy you have that you never want to get rid of. My state champion medal senior year cross country would be my main one. And I was mid-state runner of the year senior year. Yeah. And I have that plaque of runner of the year.
I just tossed so many of them.
I know.
I kept most of the newspaper clippings and stuff though.
The good thing about Olympic sports is you get a lot of medals. And medals are easier to just hang up on one hook and you're good. Like, instead of like having 15 trophies, you can hang up 15 medals and it takes up like one spot on the wall.
True.
It's the beauty of Olympic sports.
I'll say this. Now baseball has gotten to youth baseball. They give out rings now.
Do they really?
Oh, my. Gaudy rings.
Oh, that would be my one prize possession is my state championship ring from senior year.
I got one of them.
If the apartment was on fire, that's the thing I would grab.
For real?
Yeah, 100%.
Never got one of them. Heck, I still have my UT ring, my alumni ring. Yeah, I got it somewhere.
There you go.
Yeesh, I don't even remember getting that thing.
Coming up next, Teresa Walker joins the conversation. Her thoughts on what Vanderbilt needs to do to bolster their NCAA tournament resume. And if we learned anything else about this Tennessee team and its loss in Rupp Arena on Saturday. The GOAT, Teresa Walker, joining us on the other side. It's Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
It's Ramon Foster for Old School Vapor. You know, as a former professional athlete, I have aches and pains that I deal with almost every single day. But now I found Old School Vapor, and they are hands down the most knowledgeable when it comes to helping me get relief. The thing is, as soon as you walk in, there's someone to guide you and greet you in the right direction. As a pet owner, too, they have so many choices for your fur babies. If they have separation anxiety, travel issues, or even just the 4th of July when the fireworks are going off, Go shop Old School Vapor selection of over 200 legal CBD products from brands like Looper, Torch, Hidden Hills, and more. And if you use Elf Bars, Old School Vapor has over 100 authentic flavors for only $18.99 each. And you can check out their other sales like buy one, get one free off select Esco bars, 25% off glass pipes, and 50% off smell-proof bag. You can check them out on Instagram. You can Google Old School Vapor to find your nearest location. They have 4 of them with more to come. Franklin, both ends of Spring Hill, Columbia. So much more to come. That's Old School Vapor. And these products contain nicotine, which is an addictive chemical, and you must be 21 years or older to purchase, and no sales to minors.
Monday morning edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will is powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. Ramon Foster, Will Bowling with you. Jonathan Schaefer making the show happen as we go to the phone lines to hear from one of our favorites. Dare I say just our favorite. Singular favorite.
Don't even compare it, Will.
Absolutely.
Please don't.
Capitalized journalist when you talk about Teresa Walker, who joins us this morning. Good morning, Teresa. How are you?
Morning.
Good morning. I'm doing good after a weekend of soccer. The women out at Geodis Park. It was quite a turnout, and it was a fun afternoon. And guys, I love that there's always either a Tennessee or Nashville connection.
Yeah.
The U.S. women's national team scored 1 goal yesterday in their win over Japan. The goal was scored by Mallory Pugh, now better known as Mallory Swanson, who married former Vandy Boys player Dansby Swanson, who's now with the team that I support in Major League Baseball, the Chicago Cubs. So, there's always a connection.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Teresa, because I wanted to ask you about that because I know you were there in Geodis Park yesterday, and really just cool to see like 26,000 people there to see the U.S. women play. I thought that was a really good turnout for that event.
Oh, it absolutely was. And if you tuned in and watched any of the doubleheader, Brazil and Canada. Canada actually won 2-0. You got to see Marta, come in as a sub. She's working her way back from an injury. A lot of people did say it's kind of tough with the seats there. It looks like there's always a crowd anyway, but there were a lot of people, that stuck around to on a late Sunday afternoon to see Marta get in the game as a sub. And then, once they saw her play some people may have left for the exits, but it was let's just put it this way. 25,000 plus looks a whole lot better at Geodis than when they would play. I think the last time the She Believes Cup was here was in 2019 at Nissan. It looks a lot better at Geodis. And it's a much more intimate. In fact, I had some, people who normally cover soccer all the time, and they're like, this feels like this could fit in Leeds or, any club stadium in England. That's the kind of job that the Nashville SC group did in putting together Geodis Park. Wow.
And they start their season Saturday. Looking forward to that. Saturday afternoon against New York City FC. Well, Teresa, when you look at this Tennessee basketball team, we'll start here. And their loss to Kentucky. Do you feel like we really learned anything new about this team? Because the conversation we've been having all morning is, it's another loss. It's kind of the same as what we've seen. And this team just kind of is what it is right now.
Exactly. They're up, they're down. Free throws remain an issue. Cold stretches offensively. It's like when they go to the basket a few times and miss some of those close shots, it's almost like a panic button strikes and they start throwing up some shots from outside. And it's like they get out of their offense a little too quickly sometimes. And that's when they have just cold stretches where they just can't knock down shots. It happened to them when they lost to Vanderbilt. Credit to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was like one of something, hadn't made but one shot or hadn't made a field goal at all over the final 4:30. And then, boom, they make the 1-3 at the end of the game because Tennessee let them stick around. Julian Phillips could have dunked that ball and given them a very nice cushion with a few seconds to play, and Vandy still having to give a couple fouls. Vandy had to execute perfectly, and Tennessee left open a window. And it's like a killer instinct that, we're still kind of looking for with this team. They show that they can go out and beat, top-ranked Alabama. They've beaten some great teams this season. And then they go out and, no offense, but, Kentucky is not a team that they should be losing to, especially not when they lost in Knoxville. And, when you struggle the way they did Saturday at Rupp, at the free throw line, you're going to lose those games. And that has become my pet peeve in college basketball, shooting the NBA. They're free. Make those shots. Don't show me the circus Steph Curry threes. Don't wow me with a big dunk. Just make some of those free throws, man.
I know. And that's the other part of it, too, is watching this team down the stretch as of late. It's one of those, you don't want to be too hot and then fall off. We've seen certain NFL teams do those types of things. Where is this team at going into SEC tournament and the March Madness when it comes down to where they are? Do you trust, if you are a betting person, Teresa, to say, yeah, my Vols are going to do this if you're a fan of them?
Ramon, I think every Tennessee fan is watching this team expecting to be disappointed in March. Ooh. And, I'm going to compare them to Vandy. Jerry Stackhouse has got Vanderbilt now 5 straight wins. Mm-hmm. Look at the SEC standings this morning. Look who's right behind the Tennessee Vols. It's Vanderbilt, and they are nipping at their heels. And, it's because of things like we saw this last week. This last week is perfect. They can go out and beat Alabama, and then they go lose to Kentucky. And that's what that's what every Tennessee fan is wondering, and remembering. Tennessee has a history of not being able to. They bump their head in March. They tend to, lose to. My husband calls them beer league teams. Sister Jean type teams, shall we say? Once they get to the tournament, and what happens? It's because they go cold offensively and struggle to shoot. And but this is a team that started off the season beating Gonzaga, in that televised exhibition game. I mean, they've shown that they can beat the best teams in this country, and they can also stub their toe, and that's the problem with March. I mean, the SEC tournament's going to be here in Nashville in a couple weeks, right? Mm-hmm. And they're perfectly set up. You would think that because of their success this year, winning the tournament last year on the road, out of state, that they would bring a lot of orange and white to Bridgestone Arena, have a chance to do something. I mean, last year they won for the first time in 41 years. I was still in high school the last time they had won an SEC tournament. Now they come in, the defending champs. They could go for back-to-back tournament titles. They could absolutely do that, and they could go out and on Saturday in the semifinals. I mean, we have no clue what this team is going to do, and that's the biggest thing. We have no idea how they're going to respond to the moment.
And that's the other thing too, as far as responding to the moment of being good and staying good too. That's where the separation come from, good versus great. And another one of those conversations that has to be had over this weekend too. It's early, but you start off number 2 in the country as far as baseball goes. It's one thing, Teresa, to be hot, but it's another thing is to stay hot and keep that standard there. Going 1-2 on the weekend for the Vols, I don't think many people expected that from the baseball team.
No, and it doesn't help that a player that they seem to be counting on, Maui Ahuna, that they're still waiting for his eligibility to be cleared. You had Frank Anderson, your pitching coach, finishing out a suspension from the NCAA tournament last year. So it was a rough start for the baseball Vols this weekend for sure. Now that said, they absolutely have to deal with. They're now the hunted. They're not the hunter. All the fun that they had last year, shooting up to the top of the rankings and being the number 1 seed going into the NCAA tournament. People expect. They see Tennessee on the schedule. They're circled this season. How did the Vols respond to that? And they've had a lot of changes. This is not the roster from last year. So how does this team respond to, having that target on them? Vanderbilt's been dealing with this with Tim Corbin for a very long time, and they've got Tim Corbin who's been around for 20 seasons. He knows how to guide this team. Tony Vitello, with all the success that he's had, he's got to show that he can, keep the next group going and get them ready to play when you're going to get every team's best every time you go out on that baseball field. So how do they handle that? And that's going to be a big part of what kind of success do they have this season. They've got the talent to be among the best in the country. Now, the problem is, how do they handle now that people are getting up for them every single time they go out and play?
Mm-hmm. Teresa Walker, our guest this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. And Teresa, speaking of higher expectations, that's what Vanderbilt basketball fans have now, considering how good they've been over the last couple of weeks under Jerry Stackhouse. What do they need to do in order to sneak into the back of the NCAA tournament?
Well, they need to finish strong here over these next 2 weeks, and it's not going to be easy because now Florida later this week, that's a game that that should be a win. They've got a couple of home games, but they've also got to go to Rupp. How do they play there? And let's be honest, Liam Robbins being available and turning into this double-double machine has been a big part of their growth and their development. And we've seen, for all the criticism Jerry Stackhouse has taken, he was taking a lot of it in January. Let's not forget, people like Kansas gave him an extension. Why in the world? What are we doing here? But he has shown that his teams get better in February and into March, and if they can keep that up, then they're a strong performance in the SEC tournament. I mean, they've got as many quad one wins as Kentucky. They can make just as good an argument that we should be, we've got a NCAA tournament resume together. We should maybe be making a run, but it's going to be how they finish here, and can they get a couple wins in the SEC tournament? And the way they play, guys, a team that was, that had been for a few years a Wednesday participant in the SEC tournament, they're looking at being able to rest a little bit and not play on that opening day, and that is huge for you to have a chance to get a win or two in the SEC tournament.
Is this competition good for the SEC, meaning the way these teams are seem to be fighting it out on the physical side, or do you need a team to kind of separate themselves? Because Sankey made the comment about, the Big 12 winning, Big 12 and ACC winning national championships as far as basketball goes, and that's the one, department that the SEC hadn't done a lot of.
Well, I'll say this. I've been watching the bracket breakdown of, the estimate of how many teams the SEC would get in. At one point in the season, it was down to 5. Mm-hmm. And I noticed last night it was up to 8. So, they are, they may be beating up on each other, but they're also making an impression with how they're playing. So, that is a great question, though. I mean, this schedule, and then, and once we get Texas and Oklahoma into the mix, and, at 24, for basketball, it's going to be even more interesting and even more cutthroat. But, the fact of the matter is SEC teams still have more quad wins than I think what ACC has this year. So, SEC is putting together a good resume on the court. Now, does it stack up to what we're seeing out of the Big 10, the Big 12? It's a great question, but, we'll have to see. The question is it's just like, the SEC is measured by how many national football championships they've got, and they've got a lot of teams that are in competition for that, right?
Yeah.
Or at least they've been racking them up. Georgia, Alabama, LSU before that. Well, can they get teams getting into that second weekend and to the Final Four? Bruce Pearl took Auburn to the Final Four, not too long ago. But let's face it, we've got to show more depth out of this conference for them to start getting more of a reputation as a basketball league. It's just that simple. You've got to make it to the Final Four, and you've got to get more teams there. It just can't be an off year and South Carolina gets there. You need to get, more and more teams need to get there. And let's face it, Tennessee is one of those teams that, was seen as a Final Four team before the season started. And if they could be one of the teams that make it there, not only would that help validate Rick Barnes' amazing career, it would help show the depth of this league.
Teresa Walker, our guest this morning on 104.5 The Zone. And switching gears to the Titans, Teresa, now that Eric Bieniemy is officially headed to Washington, do you feel like the Titans should have waited a little longer before promoting Tim Kelly to try to bring him in-house? What was kind of your reaction to seeing Bieniemy officially announced in Washington over the weekend?
Well, we all kind of were thinking that was one of the moves until they made all their announcements and promotions. We weren't surprised when it ended up being Tim Kelly, and Mike Vrabel did say that they talked to a total of, 6 candidates. Now, we don't know for sure, was Eric Bieniemy part of that group, but you know what? One of the guys that they did talk to who was interviewed for other offensive coordinator jobs was Charles London, and he is on this coaching staff. So, he's an outside voice who, once upon a time was, he's kind of back with the Titans. He was once on the staff as a quality, control kind of guy. But he has been with Matt Nagy. He was, Matt Nagy, who we all now expect to be the offensive coordinator in Kansas City, who was once the coordinator in Kansas City, worked with Arthur Smith down in Atlanta. So there's been, Mike Vrabel did bring in some outside voices onto this coaching staff for the offensive side. It's just that, timing is everything. A year ago, we would have been so excited that it was Tim Kelly because it would have been a change from Todd Downing. But because we had Tim Kelly around and this offense got worse under Todd Downing, with Tim Kelly as the pass game coordinator, we're still kind of in this area. We just don't know what we're going to get out of this offense with Kelly as the new coordinator. So, it's one of those things that if Eric Bieniemy was the guy that was announced, I think people be, yay, even though you don't have any clue what he did, and he wasn't the guy calling the plays in Kansas City, everybody would have been excited. So timing is everything in this business.
Teresa, what do you think is the state of the Titans in the AFC South at this point? You have Colts go get an offensive-minded coach from Philly who's just in the Super Bowl. You have the Texans go defensive-minded, and you got Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. Where are the Titans in this? Are they, is it a fist fight, rock fight? Where are we at?
Well, I think it's a fist fight because, the Titans were 3 minutes away from being the three-time defending AFC South champs, despite finishing the season on a 7-game skid. So I'm still going to put them in the lead. The problem is once we know what they do at quarterback, right now when you see Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud going to, and I think every Titans fan is praying the Colts draft Will Levis. You're waiting to see what the quarterback situation ends up being in Houston. We saw what it is in Jacksonville, and Trevor Lawrence with Doug Peterson, looks like, a wonderful friendship together.
Mm-hmm.
So, this division, which for a few years was sending more than one team to the postseason, it's just the last 2 years things kind of went to heck in a handbasket. It looks like it's back on path to becoming one of the tougher divisions again, and the Titans are going to have to show that they can keep their head above water in this division. And but we've got to see first what Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel do at quarterback, and what Tim Kelly is going to do with this offense before we can really see how things shape up. They've got the experience, we think. If Brian Tannehill's their quarterback and Derrick Henry's still there, if they can fix this offensive line and add some skill positions at the outside to help Ryan Tannehill, then there's no reason why they can't say, you know what, we've been there. We know what to do. We can go fix this. We just need to stay healthy, and we can win this division again.
Mm-hmm.
But until we know, there is a big question mark.
Teresa Walker has been our guest this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Always appreciate Teresa giving us a couple of minutes. Thanks so much, as always.
My pleasure. Thank you all, and have a great Monday.
You too.
You too. There's Teresa Walker with us this morning on the Barks Payne Real Estate Hotline as we close out the show. Take a look at tomorrow's show, get to any headlines that we missed, what we've been watching over the weekend. I've been watching a lot.
Oh, really?
Too much.
I was flipping a lot, so I actually watched the finish of the Daytona 500 yesterday, too. I did.
We'll get into that. We'll get the headlines we missed. Coming up next, it's Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
It's Ramon Foster for Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Listen up. I'm not sure if y'all tapped into that weather app that you have on your phone, but this week, y'all, it's supposed to get up to close to 80 in February. So I know what that means for some people. Some of y'all going to try to raise your windows up a little bit, and if you're like me, you're going to want the AC on. And what if you click that button or those buttons and it doesn't turn on or work properly? Even if you don't think you need any work done, you should have it serviced by my people, okay? And that's Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Why wait till the summertime? It's projected that it's going to be probably above average heat when it comes to the spring this year, and you want to make sure that you have no issue. The worst thing you can do is be on the waiting list whenever something bad goes happen and it's hot inside of your house. Fellas, happy wife, happy life. Go ahead and get that service by the people that I know and trust. That's Spring Hill AC. If you want to reach out to them, their website is springhillac.com. They will be sure to come out, get you service. Make sure that your house, your wife, your kids, the dog, everybody is happy as soon as the heat start to turn, as soon as the heat start to turn outside for you. Make sure you go ahead and get it done ASAP. SpringHillHeatingandCooling.com. And be sure to tell you that Ramon sent you.
One final segment this morning of Ramon, Kayla, and Will, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors with Ramon Foster, Jonathan Schaefer. I'm Will Bowling. Kayla Anderson, she's back tomorrow, yes?
Yeah.
Kayla's back tomorrow.
Back from the sunshine state. Ooh.
Man, this transcript's iffy.
Took you a second.
It did take me a second.
Looking forward to having her back. Appreciate Ben McKee, Josh Heupel, Teresa Walker making some time for us this morning. And again, if you missed our conversation with Josh Heupel, you can check that out on your favorite podcast feed coming up here in about 15 minutes.
Easy.
We'll get that posted for you pretty immediately.
Light work
today.
right there. Huh?
That's right.
Will. I knew it.
So you had baseball over the weekend.
Did have baseball, man. We went to a showcase this weekend. Kid performed pretty good.
Nice.
So I'll leave it right there. I'm not
RJ showing
that
out.
guy. That was a good day. A good weekend. Really good weekend for him. And got back home. Yesterday had a decent time. They played a game. Man, they did 9 innings in under 2 hours.
That's not bad.
Whew.
Not bad at all.
You want to talk about getting back on the road? Made a stop at Buc-ee's.
There we go.
Hey.
That is a free shout out I will freely give all the time.
But you didn't give Mama Bowling one on Friday for the birthday.
Okay, easy.
I'm not over that. I'm team Mama Bowling on this
Don't put me in parent purgatory.
You make a threat, I stop. I'm done. Okay. Well, but then I got home and I actually ended up watching some of the end of the Daytona 500. It was really interesting.
Double overtime, whatever in the world that means.
Double, triple overtime. I saw some people getting mad because they didn't finish the finish line out and stuff, and I was just like, well, it was still exciting because I think it was like 3 crashes back to back to back.
That is the best video game to play with friends.
Oh, yeah.
Is the NASCAR video game.
Oh, yeah.
That is the best thing when you were going over to a friend's house in like middle school and you're like looking for a video game to play. It's like, hey, fire up NASCAR Heat and let's start driving backwards and try to flip a car.
I've done that.
Like the fact that I still do that regularly. Like last weekend, I literally spent time, my roommate and I, on a NASCAR Heat 5 lobby trying to flip cars over the guardrail.
I've done that.
Legitimately
before,
something that still entertains me because I'm a juvenile.
You know what's so mind-blowing to me about NASCAR?
I knew that was coming.
NASCAR, I understand aerodynamics, you know, the drafts that they get behind. I can't understand how they're going 198 miles per hour. And they're, you know, toe to toe. They're back end to back end with one another. That blows my mind, Will.
A story for larger discussion tomorrow, courtesy of Ross Dellinger this morning. Ross Dellinger of Sports Illustrated, with some interesting proposed rule changes in college football that are being discussed. Listen to this. 4 rule changes prohibiting consecutive timeouts, where you can't ice a kicker with 2 straight timeouts.
Okay.
I always think back to Jeremy Pruitt calling 3 timeouts at the same time in Tuscaloosa against Alabama, and then Alabama missing the said kick because Alabama kickers are a thing. No untimed downs at the end of the first quarter or third quarter off a penalty.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Number 3, clock runs after first downs, except inside of 2 minutes and a half.
Oh, they're changing that one?
I think you should. I think that's a welcomed change.
That's like a extra time out in college, man.
That would be the biggest difference is you would go to the NFL rule.
Oh, man.
Or be more like the NFL in that the clock would run after first downs except inside 2 minutes of a half. Obviously, in the NFL, it always runs.
Always.
But inside of 2 minutes, it would stop on first downs. I actually like that.
I hope so.
It's a way to take away these 4.5 hour, 5 hour football games when Tennessee... You know, by the way, Tennessee beat Alabama last year. Like when Tennessee beats Alabama and the game takes 5 hours.
That also changes the workings of like last minute field goals too on those timeouts.
Yeah,
I mean, those first downs.
Well, inside 2 minutes, it would be the same.
Okay, you did say that. Okay, yeah.
The 4th rule change is completely ridiculous.
What is this about?
Clock runs on incompletions once the ball is spotted. No, I don't see any
on incompletions.
I don't see any scenario of that. That's ridiculous.
Are they proposing that one?
They're proposing.
Okay, that's
no. I don't see any scenario of that.
That's not. That one's not going to pass.
What about
clock running on incompletions once the ball is spotted? It'd be like it is with first downs right now.
That pretty much they're just really trying to speed up the game, then.
Which is needed.
Who submitted that? That guy should be smacked in the back of the head.
Who?
Names. Yeah, they should attach their name to whoever said that one. That's beyond silly. On incompletions, like, come on, bro. That's
College football conducted a field study last season to ascertain the impact of the proposed changes. A running clock after a first down, Ross Dellinger writes, would eliminate about 7 to 9 plays per game.
Yeah.
A running clock after an incomplete pass could eliminate an enemy.
No,
could eliminate.
Immolate. That would be much more interesting if it immolated.
Could eliminate more than twice that number. So you're eliminating 15 plays per game if you do the incompletions and you start running the clock when the ball is spotted.
Make coaches coach out here.
And you're also making offenses like Tennessee's a little less powerful if they get to run less plays every game. Honestly.
You got to adjust to it.
Pendulum swings.
What about the injuries? They got that one yet?
Fake injuries are not on the proposed rule. Yeah.
I had hopes.
Congrats to Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss football. Back at it again tomorrow morning. The show will be whole again. With Kayla Anderson back in the building once again. We'll replay our conversation with Josh Heupel. We'll talk a little bit of Tennessee and SEC hoops with Mr. SEC Network, Ron Slay. We'll do much, much more. Who knows what violence will ensue tomorrow morning from 6 to 10 a.m. But what ensues right now are words of wisdom you need on President's Day, Memorial Day, Groundhog Day, and any day in between, courtesy of the Big Ragu.
You must remember at all times, good people, enjoy yourselves, but your